Hey, 3 Code Warrior, how's it going? We are just getting started here. I will pop my screen up here in a second. Yeah, it looks like we got everything going on here. All right, so what are we doing today? We're going to do a little beginner to expert Linux, and what's the other topic I put on there? Doing all Linux for fun and profit, right? We want to get people into doing this stuff. I'm going to be building some labs tonight probably and doing some high performance compute stuff, but while we're at it, I'm just going to be kind of hanging out with you guys, seeing what's going on. So let me refresh this thing because this stream is not showing up correctly. There we go. Now I can see that. Good. Yeah, so 3 Code Warrior, that's what we're doing today. And I guess I can... My system hard booted earlier today, and that was super annoying. So let me see if I can pull a couple more things up and get my system a little more set up while we're sitting here. I was telling people down in the Discord, I've been working mostly today on getting backups working right and automation stuff. So there's always that, going on. Kano, how's it going? Let's pull this up. This is probably something from, that's super annoying. There we go. It's like the smallest edge I've ever seen. Yeah, I saw that discussion going, and I was like, all right, I'm going streaming. I'm not getting involved in this discussion. But what are we doing? So I was on Rocky 5. I was playing around. So some of you guys know I've got this silly thing at work with the college where they're like, hey, to teach this class, you have to have this certification, and it's like Linux Essentials. Well, they didn't say it had to be Linux Essentials. It could have been Linux Plus as well. And either way, it's like this ridiculously low-level little cert. So I'm going to go take it on August 14th, which is a Friday, I think. And it's like I'm just going to go take it to just check a box. But like everything in there, I was testing out of all the courses today on my little Percepio tool, which I think Percepio is basically Skillport. If you guys have ever heard of Skillport. It's just something the college has, and I have unlimited access to a bunch of it. So yeah, it's like I don't even know what to tell them. I'm just like, it's one of these things where you just don't fight it because it's like you're just checking a box, so you just take it. But yeah, so what I was going to do today was my thoughts were to just start with some really basic Linux and just kind of run us through the numbers, right? Like run us through the paces, make sure that we understand. Where'd that go? I definitely had, here it is. Here's my Killer Coda. I'll just pull Killer Coda up over here and we'll just do, beginner to expert Linux, I guess, if we want to call it that. Although I really think that Linux is just about doing the basics really well. I don't think there's, maybe you never know everything, right? You just kind of go with what you got. Yeah. Ahmed over on the YouTube side, thanks for my time. Yeah, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me too, because it keeps me busy. The wife is going to, one of our nieces is having like her birthday, and then it's like kind of like girls only night. So the wife's going out to that, and I'm just gonna hang out here and do this. We did date night last night. Normally tonight's date night, but all right, I'm gonna put this over here so you guys can at least see yourselves talk if you want. So that's always fun. Also, does this look like it's not logged into YouTube? Give me a second here. Got to go figure out why that's not coming up. Let me do something real quick. Test. Let's see if that goes to both sides. Oh, okay. I guess it is going to both sides. All right. Perfect. All right, so let's get into it a little bit. If we're starting with Linux, we'll go with just the basics of Linux, right? We'll go and we'll start around in... We normally always start with our most basic lab, so I guess I can link that one to you guys, which is systems checking. We're just going to go in and we're just going to do a whole bunch of stuff. If anybody wants to get in that lab and do it with me, you can. And the cool thing too is nowadays in Killer Coda, you can actually rate the labs. You can be like, hey, this is interesting, or it's not interesting, or the lab worked for me or it didn't. And one of the reasons I go through the labs on stream, this is kind of my check procedure, like, because sometimes these labs get old over time and then we got to go make sure that they still work. So yeah, if anybody wants to follow along with the lab with me, we'll do it. It says you're a new system administrator at a company. You've been tasked with finding out information about a set of servers that has little or no documentation on it. Well, that's basically the admin's life. You find yourself at a command prompt and you need to find out what type of system you're working on. What is the release in the version of the system? What is the kernel version? How long has the system been up? And how was its kernel called as grub booted it? Okay, that's a lot of info, right? That's a lot of things to maybe check on a running system. But if you're an administrator, you probably have a basic handle of these commands and that kind of stuff. Bear, how's it going? Yeah, an interview at a local business said, how's my Linux knowledge? I told him it was mainly SSH and PuTTY type stuff. Have some Ubuntu server knowledge. I asked at the end what I could start learning to hit the ground running first day of work, and they said Terraform and Ansible. Can I explain that? Yeah, I can explain that a little bit. And also, would learning Python and Bash help me in Linux, or does it really matter? Bash is probably one of your number one things to learn for Linux, because Bash is how we interact with the kernel, right? We go to a command line like this, and this is where everything plugs in. The thing about Terraform and Ansible is you can think of them as kind of like force multipliers, whereas like you can do so much work at the command line as you understand what you're doing in Linux, and you can use Bash to kind of multiply your abilities a little bit, but Ansible really takes that to a next level as far as being able to touch thousands or even tens of thousands of machines. And Terraform is useful in a slightly different way. You use Terraform to stand up and tear down typically whole environments. So let me show you an example real quick in the little home lab here. I'm on a box like this, right? So I'm on my Werewolf server, and I have a whole list of servers out there. So I could like, I can find the servers like this. I can say, let's just cat out etc Ansible hosts, right? Here's my host file. So I've got all these servers here, and I also have other ways to look at those inventories. These are servers that are, oh, sorry. Let's do it this way. And then cat or wctl image node list. So let me look at it like this. These are the nodes that are being controlled by this tool that I have, Werewolf. Well, I can SSH into any one of them, right? So auto 1, jump into the server. I can jump into any one of them. And with Bash, I can hit a bunch of these nodes in a loop, right? So with Bash, I can loop over a bunch of servers. So maybe if I had all of these servers over here, maybe I had these in a file. So maybe I did like this wwctl node list, and then I did something like, let's say awk print $1, right? And that'll throw a file like that, and then I'll just throw that into, you know, temp server list. I don't know, it doesn't really matter. I can just call it server list, right? And then I vi temp server list to make sure that maybe I just pull those top 2 pieces of information off. And then now I have a file, server list. And where I'm going with this is what Bash will get you. If I want to touch all those servers with Bash, I can say for server in, and then I can cat out temp server list, right? Something like this. Do echo I am checking $server, and then something like SSH into $server. So each line I'm reading, I can SSH to server and do like an uptime. I can even do this host name uptime if I wanted, right? And then done. So now this will loop and it'll go through all the servers that are in my environment. So that's okay. That's one way to do it. But the way that works, if it hung up on a server, or you know, if there's any kind of shenanigans, this doesn't have really any control, right? This will just error out, and this will just make a mistake and whatever. If this makes a mistake or something, or hangs, I would have to add stuff to this, like a timeout. This is one I use a lot, like maybe a timeout of like 3. So then if it does fail on a server, whoops, I spelled timeout wrong. Now if I failed on a server, at least I would just see that I was checking it, and then it would fail to SSH over, and it wouldn't hang forever. The reason I'm bringing this all up is to say that is a like little basic little framework that I have, and I wrote in Bash that just goes and hits all the servers. But what if I could hit all those same servers with Ansible super easy, and I could just say Ansible, and I could say all, so I'll just hit all the servers that are in my config file, -m shell -a uptime, right? And I get all that same information excuse me, just like that, right? So Ansible is kind of like more scaffolding around the thing that you want to do. I can use Ansible to check stuff. I can use Ansible to stand stuff up quickly. But really, I like Ansible when environments are already built and I want to go touch all of them. Now, if an environment's not built, but I have to stand it up, and I was going to go use a bunch of commands, right? And I was going to go do a whole bunch of stuff to do that. Yeah, it's like a cat. Yeah, you're casting against a multi-target, right? With Terraform, it's more like I want to build a whole environment or tear down a whole environment, because what Terraform does is it keeps a state file. And I don't have any Terraform examples right now in the home lab. Hold on a second. I used to run Terraform a few years back, and I would deploy some stuff up. I do have, I mean, I guess I could show you guys one of my ones. Where am I at here? It's the way we used to deploy our Ansible labs with this. If I go to files, this is how we used to deploy with Terraform. And what Terraform does is you define like an environment, how you want it to be built, and it'll go build it for you, and then it'll keep a state file of how it built it. So this is the way we used to do it. And we used to hand a bunch of information in from, and I used to change this password every time. And you might say, why would you add a password every time? The reason I added a password every time is so people on stream could go into those servers. Normally, AWS servers, you can only get in through an SSH key, but I would turn on and give password authentication, and then people could log directly into those servers. We used to do it on stream back in the day. But this is kind of like what a Terraform deploy. This is all and the data inside of the system, what we call user data, that would set up the system, and then we would go and we would deploy all the systems, right? And so Terraform could deploy it all. It could loop over it. It could do variables. It can do all this other stuff in our environment. So for me, like I guess if you're thinking like for your money, I would say learn Ansible. But you were asking about what to learn. Bash, Ansible. Those two are the ones if you're going to be doing sysadmin work. If you're going to be doing like cloud deployments and you're going to be like, if you're going to be more on the engineering side and deploying things, probably more Terraform. But that's just kind of my thoughts on it. What role does Python play? Python can do anything, really. Python is I mean, Python's always here. Python 3, right? Like I can always just drop right into Python and I can just start, you know, if I have, I don't know what I even have in here. NumPy, I don't even know if I have it. I don't even remember how to do that. So I'd have to look it up, but I don't do much with that. But you can go in and you can just run Python at any given time. Oh, do I have an old version? Yeah, I probably do, because this is a really old server right here. My P01 Jumpo 1, nobody can get into this one. This one's really old. If you guys want this one, this is my more updated one. Yeah. It's a much newer version. 368, 3925. Yeah. So, yeah, Python's just another scripting language, right? I mean, you can learn how to do it if you wanted to, but I don't do a whole lot with it right now. I use it when I need to, but I don't do a whole lot with it right now. So back to, but your question was, why would you learn one or the other? I would definitely learn Bash, because Bash is how you interact with Linux if you're going to be administering Linux stuff. And then from there, I moved over more into Ansible. I had originally started with Perl. Perl was my main scripting language back in the day, but Perl's pretty old. You know, like Perl's not really, people aren't really doing it anymore. YouTuber, I appreciate that. Yeah, get the people going. Raleigh said pretty big one now since Ansible is mostly Python. That's true. Yeah, and under the hood, everything's Python for Ansible. That's very true. So what we were doing when that question got asked was we were starting out with a lab. So if anybody wants to do the system checking lab with us, it's right here. And it's but we're going to be touching Linux directly. So you're a new sysadmin, you're getting asked about these questions, and like this is one of the things that anybody that's done any systems work knows. There's very little information about these servers. You know, your boss went like this and he tapped you on the shoulder and said, "Oh, you," and you're like, "Hey, can I get a little bit of information about this?" And he's like, "Oh, you'll figure it out," because he doesn't know either, right? And he's just happy to have some Linux resource sitting there. So you're gonna try to answer these questions about the system, right? So there's a solution that'll walk you through it. You can always come down here. And my first answer is cat etc splat release. And that'll tell me the version of Linux that I'm on. So I'm on Ubuntu box here, 2404. It's got some code names. It's got a bunch of other information that's not super interesting to me, but it's there. And often, you know, when we're just sitting at a command line, somebody shows you something and they say like splat, and you're like, what the hell's a splat? Well, it's a shift 8, so it's an asterisk, but often people will call it a splat. And you might say, well, what's happening there, right? Well, we're giving a command. We're sending a command into the abyss, right? We're sitting here just looking at a black screen with white or green letters for the most part, and we're trying to get some standard input to give us some standard output, right? We're sending in a command of some type, and the format is command options arguments, and we're just saying cat. So cat is a command that'll show you files, and then we're saying show me everything, and we're using a wildcard for the path. This is an absolute path. We know it because it starts with a slash, and then it's down in the directory etc, and then it's anything release. That's what this is. This is anything. This is a wildcard that can expand to any value for release, and it gives us that. So if we wanted to examine that a little bit, like if you're like, well, what did it actually show us? Well, we can ls-l etc splat release, and it would show us all the things that are there. And what's in that path when that expands is etc lsb-release and os-release. However, os-release is actually just over to user. So this is up one. So ... is my parent directory. So it's up one and over to /user/lib/os-release, right? So that's what that's reading. This is a link. This is a soft link, in fact, right? We can see that right there. And you might say, how do you know it's a soft link? Well, because if it was a hard link, there'd be a 2 right there. But there's other reasons we know that's a soft link too. But they're also in the same. Well, the number of inode counts would increment for sure. But yeah, we can see that here. So I can go look at that directly. Hey, Atticus, how's it going? So cat etc os-release would be reading that file over in user lib os release. So we can actually change this if we really wanted to, user lib os release, and that would be what's in that file, right? But when we catted it out, we just showed both of the files on top of each other. We didn't really care. So I'm just explaining all that to say what we did here was just a little bit of sleight of hand where we just said, just show me everything. I don't really care what it is. And the reason I show you guys this is because this right here, regardless of what is under the hood, regardless of what is in here, this will work on most modern Linux systems. So we're on Ubuntu, and it gave us that. We go jump over into my environment. We go to like Rocky 5, and we clear the screen up, and we cat etc splat release. And that's going to give us all kinds of information. And then if I want to see what that file is, or what those set of files, oh, there's a whole bunch of files, and they're all linked to other, whatever's going on here. There's actually only 2 files here. One is this etc Rocky release. These other 2 are just links to it. Right? They're just links over to it. And we know they're soft links because there's only one inode counter. So that's an indicator that they're not hard links, because if they were hard links, the inode count would increase by 1 for each one. And then over here, etc os release, this one is actually a file that's linked back over there to like that same thing. So I just show you guys that to say like file etc os release and see what it really is. Yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying like this is a generalized way of doing it that's just kind of always worked for me. So I just kind of use this. Although yes, you could very specifically go to this one or this one because they're mostly there in modern Linux, right? So I tell guys all the time, I'm not going to tell you exactly how you have to do something. Like, I'm not being prescriptive here. I'm not like, hey, if you're going to do Linux, you have to do Linux the way I do it. I'm just telling you, like, this is a way to do it. So there's a lot of things for you guys to look at. Also, let me go fix this real quick. I've got a, damn it, right here. I need to change that. Okay, good. So now I can see what's going on. So we found that, and then maybe we want to check the kernel version. So kernel is found, there's a tool uname, and uname by itself is like the most, I mean, okay, cool. I kind of hoped I was on a Linux box. Uname-A is very verbose. It gives us all the information. Most of the time, we care about this, the actual kernel version, right? And this format, if you're newer to Linux or newer to systems in general, this is not specific. What I'm about to say is not specific in any way to Linux. This is a semantic versioning, right? And semantic versioning, like I always tell you guys, if you need to go spend time with semantic versioning if you don't know it. So semver.org is a place that will teach you about semantic versioning, and it's pretty useful. Yeah, it's pretty useful for learning how the semantic versioning works. And I would say that across all computer science, this is going to be super useful to you. Understanding this, you're not gonna waste time learning this, because everything, pretty much everything is tracked in some way with semantic versioning, right? So yeah, semver.org is great for that. So, you know, I see this, and the reason this is so important is because if there was a vulnerability for this kernel, a known vulnerability that was out there in the world in some of the databases like our CVE database, then it would be reported based on the number version of the kernel. So if my kernel was susceptible to it, I would know that based on my number version, right? And if I had a scanner like a Nessus scanner from Tenable Security, or if I had Qualys is a big scanner, and I imagine CrowdStrike has something, but I don't know what CrowdStrike's version of it is. They would have, if they were scanning your stuff, they would be looking for kernel versions and comparing it to what's out there. Now, could you write that stuff yourself and go hit that API and compare and make sure that your versions were up to date? You could, but most companies don't want to be in the business of maintaining that kind of additional software for themselves. So, so uname-r, yeah, this is the version of our kernel. Now, another one that's useful is uname-m, which will tell us the architecture. This is less useful now because pretty much most things are x86 64. However, you could be in an ARM environment and then you would have something different. There are those, like if you got a little Raspberry Pi or something, you'll see that it'll be different. But that one's super useful. But again, you can always do a uname-a. But this one's not super useful for if you're writing scripts or something. If you're writing scripts and you're going to compare a version of the kernel or something to some other thing, typically you would want something like this. So let me show you an example that I might use in let's actually go jump. I think it's on Jumpbox. Root Ansible. Let's go to patching. So this is one of my patching. This is an old patching playbook I have. Reboot. So we're down in here, and I want to reboot my servers, right? And one of the things my system does, if I were going to reboot servers, is it goes through and it checks, and this is Ansible, so we're not going too far in the weeds of Ansible tonight, or well, unless people really want me to. But one of the things that the system knows, Ansible knows when it gathers facts, the version of the kernel. So that if you use Ansible kernel, you can call that version. And then we check it against this. So let me show you what I'm doing here logically. So if I were to say on this box, uname-r, it would give me the version of the kernel. I know this is a very old kernel, guys. This is a very old server that's not even supported anymore. It's just up in my environment for nostalgia. In fact, this is how old this server is. And this is an old guy. He's out of rotation, though. He's not in any of our pathing of anything that people connect to. But he's an old box. I get it. But when I do a uname-r, he can't even be patched anymore, by the way. But let me show you guys this. So he's got a version of the kernel, but then I've got this tool called Grubby. And Grubby is right here. Grubby will tell you the default kernel that your system is set to boot to when it boots the next time. So if you do this check right here, if you check this, and then you do this logical little, I'm going to show you right here. So if you did a uname-r, which is actually captured in the Ansible kernel when Ansible does its gather facts, it's essentially the same thing as this, right? And then you do what am I going to boot the next time when I boot? That will have the same string if they're the same. But if there's a newer kernel that's there that's ready, that's waiting to boot, you've installed a new kernel, and when you boot up, you're going to go to that kernel. Grubby will tell you that. And then all you got to do is check that. And if that's not in there, so if the old kernel is not in what the system wants to go to, then we set the reboot flag and we reboot the servers. This is an old way that I used to patch. I used to patch thousands of servers like this. Well, every time we had kernel patching, I would set a flag. This is exactly the same thing that I did in production for a big insurance company years ago, right? So this is the logic to it. If you have a new kernel, set the flag on. Now there was another check in here that actually would be here. So it was when it was rebooted and if the servers were in their patching window. So there's another thing that I also do, etc Ansible in here. And in you know what, hold on, do I have any servers up that still have this config fact on them? I'm trying to think. Now if I don't, I can show you guys in one of the labs too. But the facts are Where do I have that? Hold on. I might have that up on... Let's just try... Let's just see, is Influx 2 up? Okay, maybe it's in there. Nope. Trying to think of where I have this. Well, I can show you guys in another context, but I guess it's not that important. But you know, we're down here, and I keep going off on my little squirrel tangents. But the point is, in the lab, you can see these basic things. All right. We can also check the uptime of a server. Uptime is very important if you're getting called out in the middle of the night. Did the server reboot or did the server not reboot? That's going to choose a lot of pathing for us how we go. And then, oh, hold on, let me move this up a little bit too so I can see chat. Dash release? I could probably do that. I've never messed with that one. I'm not sure why it's like that. Linux 7 training as well. Nice. Raleigh, you might have to drop that in the Discord and then I can pull it up. Debug and prod if something breaks. Yeah. Well, we used to say, you know, if you can't get downtime, make downtime. But that's not a very good saying. Anyway, so then what I want to do, you know, the uptime gives us a bunch of information. We won't go into it all now, but there's a lot of good information when you do uptime at the command line. And I can also cat proc cmd line, and this will tell me how the kernel was called when it was called as the Grand Unified Bootloader grub called the Linux kernel. What was the commands and options that were given? And this is it right here. There's also one other place to find this that I don't mention right here that's really good is you can do a dmessage and then maybe just throw a head on dmessage because dmessage is everything in the kernel buffer. And this is the start of the call. You can see right here how the system was called. Here's the version of the kernel and here's the actual command line call. But it's also shown right here in catproc command line. So there's some reasons to know the catproc command line. Like if you're booting a bunch of servers and you want to make sure that they all took the same image, it's kind of useful to do something like this. I might, in my home lab here, if I'm over here, I may say Ansible, let's say Rocky, and I wanted to make sure that they were all booted over to the kernel, right? Because I can see that they're all staged. I can see they're all staged for the right kernel or the right version of the OS, but I don't know for sure that they've all been booted until I do something like this. I say Ansible, maybe Rocky, and then -m shell -a uptime or something, you name -r, something like that. And then now I would see that they're all booted and they all have the updated version of the kernel that they should have, right? And this was actually the other day we updated the lab and we did the kernels and that kind of stuff. So the double dash is a GNU style. Yeah, sometimes it's actually funny. Some commands allow both. And then it's like the dash is typically for the shorter version of the option and the dash if you want to give the full long option. So yeah, people do that. There's different ways. But anyway, so we did all these commands, right? And then if you're doing this and you're following along with me and it's a lot, you can always say history and you can see all the commands that you did. You can grab those and pull those out if you wanted to. These lab environments are only for an hour at a time, but I tell you guys all the time, I think Killer Code is one of the best free things on the internet. So you can just go hang out and play on labs and stuff. So now we're digging in a little deeper, and I say do each command to see what output you're looking at. You may run them multiple times if needed to compare the output. So we're digging a little deeper into like what's going on in the Linux box. We want to look at all the virtual memory usage of this system. So this system is full of some amount of memory, and that memory is being used in some way. That output doesn't look great. Might look a little better like this. And on your screens, you may have a little bit better view of it. I'm just trying to make it a little bigger so everybody can read it. But that it gets a little convoluted. But the point is, we have some amount of free memory on any box, and I should be able to then go look at how that memory is being used. I'm gonna pull this across a little bit so it fits a little better for now. And then, okay, so what did we do? We did vmstat, which is a tool that will tell us information about the memory. We said for every 1 second for 5 iterations, we want to see what kind of memory usage is being used on this box. So I may change this while we're talking and say just vmstat1, and that's going to run forever. It's going to do a really cool thing, though, is it's going to check as it goes, and it's going to keep those See how these are about to scroll off the top of the screen? When it gets down to a full page, it's going to check and then it's going to paste another header. So this is actually kind of a cool little thing that these do. Watch, it'll paste another header for you so you don't forget what you're talking about, right? But every 1 second, it's going through all of this information, and you can go and run and look at what each of these things mean. You've got runnable processes and blocked processes. This is how many processes are running across the processors at any given time. If you have more runnable processes, then you have actual CPUs, so NPROC, then that means that something was waiting at that exact second to get to the CPU, right? So that's runnable, blocked. You have, if there's any swap in or swap out, you really in modern Linux don't want to see swap. Swap means that you're writing from RAM down to a much slower disk, and even if they're SSD disks, they're still maybe 1/100th of the speed of RAM. It's not good. We want to see if we have free memory. Free memory is really kind of the key to a lot of things working still. If you run out of free memory and you're using like a database or something and you're having problems, it's almost always because you're out of free memory, right? And databases, they expand out because they want to hold everything in memory if they can. So there's things to think about there. Over here, there's just a whole bunch of, these are all, they're user space calls, system calls. There's a bunch of information that's going on over here with the CPU and the system. But even though you're like, well, I thought I was looking at memory. Yeah, you are looking at memory being used over here, but then it also gives you a bunch of CPU information as well, right? So there's a bunch of things. I have a slide that shows you guys this stuff, but in the big scheme of things, if you're looking at VMstat, you're probably looking at these numbers right here. And you might be looking over at your runnable and blockable processes because that'll let you know if CPU is starting to become something, and then you need to go look at CPU saturation. Because if this isn't full right here, if your free memory isn't gone, you're not saturating RAM at that point. You may be doing all kinds of other things, but you're not saturating RAM. You're not using all of your RAM yet. So then you jump over and start looking for CPU saturation, right? And saturation in my definition is utilization. Once you get to 100%, you're in saturation, right? So this is why we look at a lot of these tools. But anyways, it says that we can check that. We can also use MPStat. MPStat will tell us how the CPUs are being used in our environment, right? So maybe I come over like this and I can see. And if we just look at this at face value, I might ask you, does this system look like it's under heavy load at all? And I think most of you would probably be like, yeah, Scott, that box isn't doing anything. But watch this real quick. While we're sitting here, I can open a new tab, right? And I could say in this tab, let's see if stress exists. Stress is not on the system, so apt install -y stress. We'll give it some stress. And I'm gonna stress this box for a second. While that's happening, so let's go back over here. Let's change our MPStat to this, where now we're just gonna watch it run. And we're gonna see it. This box is chilling, right? Go over here. We're gonna say stress -C4. So we only have one CPU, but we're gonna pretend we have 4. And we're gonna say -T for timeout of 180. So we'll go 3 minutes of load on this box. And we come over here and we watch this box just spin up to high load. Look at all that load on the system. It's 100% right now. Across, the one CPU that we have, but it's just looking at all right here. We can change MPStat to look at individual CPUs as well if we wanted to, but here we are, we're just looking at everything. And yeah, this box is getting hammered now, right? And that's going to run like that until it's all done, and then it's going to go back. I think if we hit Control-C, it'll give us an aggregate. Yeah, it gives us what the average was for all of them over the entire time when we hit the Control-C. So it ended with an average. And our average was 61 because of the fact that there was those ones at the beginning with nothing. Double dash. Yeah, well, yeah, any time. We call it thrashing. Once you start thrashing down to disk, your box is a modern. I haven't run like, and I work mostly with high performance compute and like performance type systems. I haven't run a system that was expected to be using swap for well over 15 years. Like if it's swapping, that is 100% always a problem for me in any of my environments. I'm trying to think of an environment where you'd be okay with it, and I can't even in the modern world, I can't think of a single place where you would want swap to actually be happening. Does it have to be there? Absolutely. In fact, when you go to run tools like if you're installing Oracle, right, like Oracle databases onto your Linux boxes, it will require you to have so much swap as a percentage of your overall RAM. And when you have boxes that have 512 gigs or even a terabyte of RAM in them, that calculation against the disk is like, it can be like, hey, we want you to have 128 gigs of swap. You would never, ever in a billion years want to be swapping 128 gigs down to disk. That would be, I mean, it would take your system a week to do anything, right? That would be like a nightmare but the proportions have to be the same, and you want them to exist, but you never want to use them. And the scripts will check the Oracle installer. And by the way, you say, well, I'll just install Oracle by hand. The install procedure for supported Oracle, if you want support from them, which you do if you're paying them, is to use their installer script, right? You have to use their script. So there's no taking that apart and running it yourself. You have to let it run. So anyways, look, this box is about to drop off all its load when that completes. So we will see that here in a second. You will just see it flip back to chilling the server once the 3 minutes are up, which should be pretty soon here. We should be seeing that. Yeah, in production, yeah, we definitely don't. Yeah, we definitely don't want it. It's just, I mean, it's just another, and I mean, on another side of it too, it's just one more thing that can break, right? He should be almost done. That's a long 3 minutes, but it's kind of funny. Oh, there it goes. It's done. When I'm talking a lot of times, like 3 minutes seems like a really long time. So yeah, that was 3 minutes there. If we come back over here, we should see it finished. 180 seconds. Yeah, that was the timeout we gave it. All right. So anyways, yeah, the Oracle installer. Yeah. But you had to have like Grid and Oracle on there. In fact, that was an exception with my old environment when I ran that insurance company. I was the platform engineering lead. We had to have Oracle and Grid. They had to be local users, and we had to put them on. So they were like exceptions to our overall environment. But all right. So anyway, so then we maybe might do a command like, let's clear that screen up. We might do like ps-ef, and it'll show us everything that's going on, all the processes, right? PS, if you man it, will tell you that it just wants to give you a snapshot right now of the processes in the system. So if I do a ps-ef, it just dumps a bunch of stuff to our screen. Well, I can count that. How many general? There's about 129 processes. I can also do a NL, which will give me a number line. It basically just puts a little number at the beginning of it. It just so we can count them up. But hold on. What I could do instead is maybe do this rest of this command where I really, when I looked at this ps-ef, I really just wanted to know who was doing stuff. So over here on the far left, right, this column here is the user ID of the owner of the process. So what I can do is, we've got this process. Remember I said earlier, when we send data in, it's actually really funny. Thank you for the anonymous gifter for the I like your eyelashes. That's actually really funny. They had one, what was the one the other day somebody did? They gave one to a very unhinged name. But anyway, so let's do a ps-ef. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pipe in and I'm going to catch the standard output before it comes to the screen. And I'm going to send that into a filter. And I'm going to build the filter with awk. So awk is a tool that loves to grab columns. grep is a tool that loves to grab rows, right? So I'm going to go with awk and I'm going to say print out only the first field. And if you give it no delimiter, if you give no field delimiter, the default that awk is going to use is going to be greedy on space. So what that means is this is the first column, this is the second column, this is the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth. If you don't pick a field delimiter, you can pick a field delimiter whenever you want with a -F, but we're not going to do that right now. We're just going to say I want to see just this first field. And when I do this, it's going to just give me, that first. But that's too much information. So now I'm going to sort him. I'm going to sort him down, and I'm going to say unique. And now it's going to sort them and give me just the values that were there, but that doesn't count it for me. So if I do a unique-C, it'll actually count the output for me, and it'll tell me this box is just hanging out with a bunch of root processes running. Oh, and UID, we could have stripped out UID if we wanted, because that was just the header. But in general, if we were asked, like, hey, is this box actually doing anything? Or is it just like a box that somebody stood up in our environment that's unconfigured? It's like just sitting out there not doing anything. This box is chilling. This box is not doing anything right now. Um, what's your opinion of ripgrep or faster find alternatives? I haven't played with any of them. I'm very vanilla, so grep still works. So I haven't looked for an alternative. So I don't really have an opinion on any of that stuff. Um, I mean, I've grepped through, I mean, I guess it depends. I don't know. Like for me, if I'm looking through, let's say log files are by far the biggest things that I deal with, and I'll grep out log files that have millions of lines, and I'll still get my output in a few seconds. So I mean, I I don't know. I mean, I guess I could probably save some seconds if something was faster, but I've never really dug into it and looked at it, so I don't have like a good um, I don't have a good answer for that. I guess um, I've never tried anything faster than just grepping at the command line. So that is an interesting thing, though. I never really thought about it. Um, yeah, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I've never played with it. So Scott saying you can use default to jump to a new machine, you'll be happy. Yeah, yeah. I do very much just jump around Linux boxes without like changing my environments around and stuff. Um, so this is this is a way to cut down and look at what's going on inside of the system instead of like going, okay, I'm going to count up all the roots here. I've already lost them, right? Like how many roots there are. The system will do it for you. And I often tell people the system does things better than you. So learn how to tell the system to do it, especially in matters of counting and finding things, right? I'm not very good at like looking through. If we were just like cat var log, auth log, and I go, oh, did you catch them all? No, we didn't catch them all for sure. But could I then have maybe, grep for like cron? Now, did we catch all the crons? Well, I don't know how many there were, but the system will count them for me. There was 40 instances of cron that came up in this little run right here. And then, do I need to know what's going on? Do I need to know if there were any errors? We can keep grepping down. And as you do those pipes, you're just taking the output that was going to come to standard out and you're filtering it down in some way through the standard input going into the next command. So when you see people building these long commands, that's all it's doing. We're playing a game of catch with the shell. I'm sending into standard in. It's either going to give me standard output or standard error. We want standard output because error means you messed up. And then you're just filtering down that information. In fact, when we write scripts, a lot of times we'll throw the trash away. So the things that we don't want to see, we'll just throw out so they don't pop up to our screen, right? And we'll do redirects and stuff for that, which is basically, that is basic Linux we need to know. But anyway, so I'm still over here. I'm just going through my labs, and it says let's dig a little deeper into networking. Do each command and think about what output you're looking at. You may run them multiple times if you want. So I can come down here. And, I'm just sitting at a Linux box trying to figure out what's going on. I may run sar-n dev. Whoops, that should be dev like that. 1 to 5. So it's going to be every 1 second for 5 iterations. What's going on inside of the interfaces that I have here? So I have 3 interfaces on this box. You always have a loopback interface, LO. That's true on all TCP IP connected systems. They always have a loopback interface. I have an ENP1S0, which I suspect, from what I know about Linux, but I could be wrong, I suspect that is our primary interface, but we can validate that if we wanted to. And then I've got this Docker interface, right? And basically, as I look at this, what I'm seeing is there's very little traffic on these interfaces. They are not utilized hardly at all in either the receive of packets per second or the transmit of packets per second. Now, I often tell you guys, if you're getting into engineering, RX is always going to be receive and TX is always going to be transmit across all fields of engineering that I know, right? Or that I've worked in, right? You are always going to have receive and transmit of whatever type, right? So if you're looking at some cables and you're looking at your diagram and you see some are TXs and some are RXs, that's how they're denoting whether they're sending or receiving data, right? So I can also type this other command and it'll give me TCP or the errors on the interface. So now I can see if there's any active. Earlier we just looked for all of the information coming in or out. Now we're seeing if TCP has active or passive or errors on the system, right? And in this case, I don't really see any. But if this were a web server and there was TLS termination on it, I would hope to have a lot of good active connections for my TCP, right? Because TLS goes over TCP. All of your HTTP and HTTPS goes over TCP connections, right? I would hope to not have a whole lot of errors because errors would indicate something was wrong, right? Now, we look at stuff like this and you very quickly go, Scott, that doesn't seem like that would be something that I would want to look at. And that's definitely something I can't give to management to look at. And you're like, no, you're right. Typically, we give management, dashboards, something like this, and instead of every last 5 minutes, we might give them the last, 24 days or 28 days or something. And they would be able to come in here and see that the system had never spiked on any of these different things. So there's different networking pieces of information that we can show people, and we can give them more useful things. A lot of times we want to keep any other type of users off of command line, because they're not going to be doing this admin stuff. This is us when we're like down troubleshooting things, right? Yeah. I mean, Grafana is a fantastic way to just do a quick heads up. I see a little bit of red here. I can go see why the memory usage on that Loki box is bad. And that's actually been like that for a while. So maybe I want to go look at what's going on with my Loki server, right? And then that would give me a heads up indicator, kind of like a dashboard light, that there's something wrong with my system. But anyway, so then it says here, look at you learning Linux, you looked around the OS. So this whole lab was really just to look around the operating system. And another thing I might say for, I mentioned earlier that there's the 3 interfaces. I might do like IP-BR ADDR, and then that would show me information about those interfaces. And I see a couple things here going on that are interesting. I see the 3 interfaces. I see that loopback loopback's being loopback, but it is based on IPv4 and IPv6. This is the common 127.0.0.1, which is home. And in IPv6, it's ::1/128. That's the home address. So that's your system being able to ping itself or check on itself that it's working correctly. This one I suspect, from earlier saying, I suspect that this is our default interface. I have the IP information for IPv4, and then I have its IPv6. So this is also a dual homed, or some people call it like a dual stack IPv4, IPv6 interface, right? And then Docker is down, and okay, well, Docker's probably not it. But if I wanted to know how the system was going to route, I can do IPR or route, and I can see the routing table that the system's going to use, right? And I can see real quick here that if I were trying to send something out to the default gateway here, which means that that's the default route, then we're going to use ENP1S0, letting me know that that is definitely the primary interface of this box, right? I mean, I can guess all I want, but I know now that that's how things are going to be routed if they're leaving this system, if they don't adhere to one of these other 2 networks, which, by the way, if they're in this network, they're going to go out that interface anyways. But if they're outside of the network, they're going to use this one. How do I know that? So like if I ping 8.8.8.8, right? And then what happens here is this is attempted to be matched right here. So 172.30.1, see how that's a 255. So that's 24 significant bits of checking. Does this match right here to the first 24 bits of this? I'm being silly. It clearly does not. So the system, my system right here, doesn't have a route to get to 8.8.8.8. It doesn't have it. Not defined. But it's got a default. And the default is where it goes. It's like, you guys ever seen that meme where the person's looking at the little box top, and he's like, okay, where does the square one go? And they go, oh, yeah, in the square. And he puts the square one in the square. It's like a little box with the shapes cut out. And then he goes, okay, where does the moon one go? And the girl's like, the moon. And then he puts it, yeah, you're right, it goes in the square. And he puts it in the square one. And then he's like, what about the circle one? And she's like, in the circle. And he goes, yeah, you're right, in the square. And he drops it. So all of the shapes go in the square. And you hear this person getting more and more like at their wit's end, basically listening to this really funny little meme. Well, that's exactly how the default gateway works. If you don't know what to do with it, you have to have a default set, and then everything goes out that way, right? So this is an important thing. We have a bunch of free stuff here in our books. We have a bunch of free books online, right, with the group, and we do have some networking stuff. Where's networking? We should have networking right here, but in the Linux admin, I'm sure we do some networking stuff. Where's that? I guess we don't have any directly. We do networking throughout all of it, I guess, but definitely in like operate running systems, and then I guess maybe in some firewall stuff we talk about some networking. I thought we had one dedicated for networking. I know we do over on the security side, right? We do securing the network. But the point is, there's stuff out there for you guys to go play with if you need to more on that. But anyway, so let's look more at this. It says that we did the whole lab, so we can back out of there. And we don't have to go through all the labs today, but there's a bunch of labs for you guys there if you want to go play around with Linux. Yeah, Atticus, I've done a fair amount of Fisherman's Labs on stream. But if you guys haven't seen Fisherman's Labs, I hope he's still in my... Yeah, he's got his labs here. If anybody wants some good labs on sysadmin stuff, like how are you getting this work as an administrator? His labs are all about running and becoming a sysadmin. Like if you want to go do that stuff. And his are much more of a kind of like I guess you would say like a more combative. They don't walk you through anything. You have to just get through them, right? So there's that. Atticus, do you want me to actually go through them right now? I mean, I can, I guess. I was going to start working on building my labs out a little bit. But I mean, I can do them if you guys want. I'll leave that up to you guys. I'll give you guys a minute to tell me, and I'll go look at our Discord real quick while you guys decide what you want to tell me. I was also going to show you guys this. In our Discord, we have a free event coming up. It's the annual technology conference. We've been doing this ProLug for 12 years. Everything in here is free. I wanted to note that we just moved me and Jared. Jared is going to go first. And I'm moving mine to the end of Saturday. And the reason we did that was he has some kid things with football and stuff, getting his kids to football practice. So we had to move his earlier so that he didn't have a chance of missing it. So he's gonna kick it off. Then we're gonna have people thinking like an attacker, rel security with Stigs. I'll talk about engineering in general, and then some of the other stuff. King Buns is running all the late night, just kind of gaming stuff. If you guys want to hang out and talk about the stuff that you saw or talk about things that you want to work on, there's just gonna be some hangout sessions. I'm gonna have some prizes there. He's gonna run Jackbox games, I think. So we were testing that a few months back to make sure everything was good there. But anyways, that's stuff that's out there for you guys. Yeah, I didn't see. Nobody said that they wanted to do them right now, so I'll skip. I'll go back here. Let's do real quick. Let's pull this over here. And what I was gonna do, let me move this over here. Move this down here. What I was gonna do was go back here one. Again, just our ProLug labs here. And these are all my different areas that I have going right now. And what I need to do is I need to set up this HPC Labs one. And I want to do it around this basic structure of, where's the structure.json? Oh, I don't have anything in there yet. Okay. Let me get this out of the way. I thought I had copied something in there. Let's go just steal one from one of these other ones. Because, you know, best thing to do, just steal from yourself. Oh, wrong one. Structure.json. Boom. And then we're just going to go ahead and clean this all up. And we're going to start with the path here will be, let's call it, we'll do dashes. Yeah, dashes will look better. HPC dash, and I got to decide some naming for these. So let me go look at my planning on this. Oh, that's the wrong one. I want, let's say HPC components. Yeah, this will probably be, that'll be that first lab, HPC components. And then the next one will be, let's just copy this. And the next one will be HPC so the way I'm doing these will be, I guess network devices is my next one, but maybe we'll do, looking at my notes over here, figuring out how I want to do this. Network devices, configuration. Here, I can move this up too, so you guys can see your chat. Oh, nobody's talking. All right. Um, I guess we can do network devices. That's fine. And then we'll do the next one is going to be werewolf and images. That'll be probably one on its own. And actually, I might just grab some of these. Will be copied from other labs that I have. So HPC, STIGs, hardening. That's the next one. Next one is storage. What's our next one? Job scheduler. Let's do Slurm setup, and then we'll capture that, and we'll do, whoops. We'll do Slurm, Slurm operation. That's not terrible. And then we need compilers. So we can say compiling. And then so it's compiling in software environments are the way that I'm doing it. Let's say software SPAC. So we're going to use a tool called SPAC for that. And then we're going to do, I'm just laying out kind of my notes from my other notes. Backup, so we're going to say backup with Bacula. So we'll do backup. And then we're going to say monitoring, which is Grafana. So it's prom. We'll just say monitoring stack, and that's going to be all of them. So we're going to do Grafana, Prometheus, other stuff. Hey, Adaverk, how's it going? Yeah, we're just writing notes out now pretty much for the environment. Monitoring stack, threshold, so monitoring, and this is alerting. So it's thresholds and alerting is what I like to call it, but I'm trying to keep these kind of, oh gosh, oh man, you guys gotta stop me. You guys gotta stop me. I'm being dumb. Man, I was wondering why these were getting so long. Yeah, that's monitoring. Yeah, that's my bad. Sorry guys. I didn't realize what I was copying was making everything longer. So this will be user access. And there's no specific tool for that, so we'll just say user access for that one. And then we'll call this one securing access. And that's bastions. I've shown you guys bastions before. And then, so there's one more in my normal setup that I'm not going to bother with this one, which is called startup from bare metal, but I'm not really worried about that for like the little online version of this that we're doing, because in Killer Coda you don't control the environment, so you don't ever get to do anything with that. So all right, what am I missing here? Our backups monitoring going to be different nodes. Had a couple of issues with backups in our labs. They're going to be on the same nodes, but at different times, right? Because in any of these labs, because you're just doing, like, you're building individual component pieces, you're never touching everything at the same time. If we went to Excalidraw, it kind of looks like this, where I'm going to have a picture of this for each of the labs as we're kind of going through it. and it'll be something to the effect of like this, where normally we look at the whole image here, right? Like this is the NIST 800-223 standard, right? And then but when we're talking about just like the access zone and just login nodes, I'm gonna kind of gray out the rest, or darken the rest, and say, well, we don't care about those right now. We're focusing on this part, right? And to build this whole thing, because you can't build it all. I mean, they're all individual labs. You would basically have to do each of these components in like a more solid lab, one that's not just every every hour it's deleting itself or whatever. So, and then this is the one I'm doing for my lab environment. So at work, this is our lab environment. It looks like this for the people. And then all of these things are happening on one bare metal server. Yes. So would we normally do that? Oh gosh, no. All of these servers would be their own jobs. But in a dev environment, often we have less resources than we do, in a real prod environment, right? So we need to kind of be frugal where we can, I guess, with the compute, right? Oh, New World, you said, I missed this, Andy. Last time I stopped by, you're using Proxmox. How's it been working for you? Any highlights? Yeah, I'm still using Proxmox. Most of my environment has actually moved to Proxmox. So all of my Werewolf got moved over there, all of my other stuff. I do still have a couple of XCP NG servers sitting out there. I'll pull them up real quick. Where's this at here? Yeah, these are the two boxes I still have up, and they don't have a lot of server or a lot of processing going on them right now. The main servers to still move over to the Proxmox are my jump boxes, but I'm going to rebuild them net new in there. And then Hostbox has already been moved. Moodle will probably die in place because I don't really use Moodle. That was just a test years ago. This one has most of my monitoring stack and our lab stack, our webpage stack. So this stuff will be a little bit more of a thought to move. But these other ones that I've already turned off, these were all the Werewolf systems, and they're all over in Proxmox. So yeah, I'd say the main things. So Andy, if you're still around, New World Andy, I kept track of everything we did. Let me pull up Notepad. Let me get my Notepad++ out here real quick for you guys. And why did it pop up way over there? No idea. I'll pull this up over here for you guys. This is kind of when I was doing all of my rebuild into Prometheus, I was taking notes, and my home lab rebuild notes kind of look like this. So these are all up in the Discord for people too. As we were working through the things and as we were moving everything over, as I was kind of like doing the labs and building stuff, I kept the notes of what we were doing, and I put them up in Discord. So if anybody was like, what was he doing, or how did he do that thing, or whatever he was checking, how did he rebuild cRouter? Because I've had a lot of questions over the years about how a router, how a Linux box turns into a router so that you can separate VLANs, right? And that's kind of when we moved off of cRouter, that was his old name. He's now called Linux Router. He's sitting between the two environments running. I think I can make this bigger if you guys wanted to see it. But the point is, that's I just pull out the console here. This guy sits. He sits in the two networks at 192.168.11.160 on one side and 192.168.200.1 on the other side. And he just sits there as a router between the two networks. Traffic that's going to the one goes there. Traffic that goes to the other goes back there. And then in my home lab, I have the 192.168.11.1, which is my internal device, and that has a static route. Anything going 192.168.200, which is a non-routable, couldn't leave anyways, goes over to 192.168.11.160. So all traffic in my normal home lab, that's in my normal home environment, not even the lab, and I want to send to the Prolog lab, there's a static route to just send it to this box. And then this box is the one that just moves it between the two environments. So yeah, I didn't see that original question. I missed it, but that's that's kind of what I'm doing. That's what the environment looks like. This box is mostly chilling, right? Like people look at it and go, we're just chilling. It's got 80 CPUs and 512 gigs of RAM, and it's mostly just hanging out. But people have access from the Discord to get into these lab boxes if you guys need to do any of the work, or you just need processing, right? You guys can get access to that. I do have one server, the MCP server. This is a real server doing real production stuff. This box is actually... it's one of my buddies is using it as a they're actually doing research on that. So a couple of my buddies have PhDs in economics, and one's in India and one's in Colorado, and they use that server as an MCP server, which helps control. MCP is kind of like a framework over the top of AI models. So they're both economists, and they both like throw different models at economic data, but they can pull the data in and then keep things that have been learned within the AI, and then using that. I don't really do much with MCPs, but I just maintain one in the lab for those friends that want to go and use some compute. Because we were talking about it, and they're like, yeah, we can go run them out in AWS for 50 a month, or Scott can just do it. And I was like, yeah, just put me as a footnote in your research. Prolog helped me helped us out with processing. I said, just throw that out there, and I'm fine with it. So all that to say, our systems are running some production workloads now, so that's kind of cool. Yeah, so anyways, we're working on that. I was talking about this the other day on stream too. When I get done with my dissertation, which is, in the next, 5 to 9 months, depending on how long it takes me to finish, we will have like events that come up. We're going to start doing like probably a monthly event for people that want to do research. Like if you guys want to go pull down stuff from data.gov, if you guys want to go look at like how we do stuff at NOAA, and if you guys want to start getting into that, we have a certain amount of processing. Now, it's not a great amount of processing. We're going to get some GPUs in here too, but enough to kind of go. If I install Rocket 96 on a head load, where will the backup save its data on the head? Oh, yeah, so this is Melvin, by the way, from Red Light. Nice, I missed that, Melvin. I didn't even read that. Yeah, so we're going to simulate it, most likely. We're going to simulate in our environment. We're going to take that head node, and we're probably just going to back it up to somewhere. We're going to simulate the backups. We don't really have to run backups. We're just going to simulate them in our lab environment. But yeah, what we'll do is we'll get a connection out to like Lustre. And even nowadays, what we could do is we could just connect it in this lab that I'm kind of building out. That's very much mirroring that. When we do the backup, we will probably just back it up to the other node, but we're really just pretending to throw it somewhere at that point, right? It's kind of like I'm trying to think of a good example, but like in the military, we used to shoot targets that were at 25 meters away, but they were really tiny, so they were simulating 300 meters away. Now, we also shot out to 300 on some ranges, but sometimes when people were qualing, we would just shoot, we would just shoot at like 25 meters at these targets. And they were really small. I mean, the 300 meters were really small. You really had to be able to put it in there, but that was actually funny because I always had friends that couldn't shoot, so I'd just sit in the lane next to them and I'd shoot their targets. I was shot expert the whole time I was in the Army, so that was one thing. I grew up shooting, right? I started shooting when I was 7 years old, and I competed in long range shooting as a kid. So I still do long range precision shooting too, but that's not that big of a deal. But it's just funny to me that some people can't shoot, so I just sit next to them and shoot on their targets for them. Anyways, just to get them to pass, but that's kind of funny. All right, so I'm going to hit Control S. I'm going to save this, and that's going to be my outline for my HPC labs out there on Killer Coda, right? And then from here, some of you may have noticed I've got this course all ready to be set up for Systems Engineering and Administration out on LeanPub, and I always tell you guys, like anything we do in the Discord is always free, right? So anybody in the Discord, anybody that works through this, anybody that wants to go do this stuff, it's all free. But I am going to have a LeanPub course for people that just like stumble on it and want to get like these cool little certificates. They give little certificates from LeanPub, and then you could at least just show like, hey, I went through this HPC course. I understand the basics of it. Because we want to get more people. I mean, the goal is to get everybody into Linux, right? At the end of the day, get more people doing Linux. But as kind of like a subcategory of that, we want to get people into we want to get you guys into doing HPC as well, because HPC is like I don't know, I don't want to say it's like the cool thing, but it's like everybody wants to do it. At the end of the day, it's still work, guys. Like I tell people all the time, like if it was fun, they wouldn't call it work. It's still work, right? We still got to think through things. I mean, what was I dealing with today? I have these servers that won't rotate my tapes, so we've been trying to get the tape connection to work correctly. Everything looks like it's working fine. They're reading each other, but the tape signals aren't. There's nothing being backed up in some of my environments. So I'm trying to like scratch my head like everything looks good. Just an annoyance, but okay. Where was I at here? I was building this stuff out. We were talking about this. But yeah, backups can go to the same node and just pretend, like we can just pretend in the environment as well. Um, yeah, yeah. So we'll definitely, and Melvin, I'll be on Monday. We're gonna hammer this stuff out for sure. I'm actually gonna be writing some of that this weekend too. I got more stuff to do. We're gonna be monitoring like Slurm, and we're gonna be tracking all that stuff too. So, um, actually, I'm gonna have to do that in this monitoring stack lab. I'm gonna have to add in the Slurm stuff because one of the things we want to monitor is the Slurm environment. So I'm gonna have to add that stuff in too. So. All right, too many things to keep track of. Too many things going on, but we're getting through it all. What else do we have? So we got that set up. That's kind of good to start. I talked about a little bit earlier. My college is making me take this certification test, which some of us probably realize is a little bit silly, but. Hold on, where is my... Maybe I closed it. Let me just pull this out here for you guys real quick. It's the Linux Essentials, right? And it's this Linux Essentials thing. And here are the exam objectives, right? And we talked through these the other day. But these are the things that you have to know how to do or understand for this certification. And we were down here the other day, kind of just digging through this. It's actually funny. In my college, I have this tool called Percepio, and I was reading a book yesterday, and I told the wife it was really funny. I've never cared about. They've got a little experience bar at the top of this thing, and I've got like 320 experience points. But I read this whole book yesterday, right? I read a whole book on Linux Essentials, and it said it was worth 1,385 experience points. And I was like, I didn't know, 5 minutes ago that this experience bar existed, but now I want to know how to get my damn experience. So I was like explaining to the wife. She was driving home yesterday from work, and I was like, I never once thought, I didn't care, never once thought about it. But now that I see that experience bar, now I want to know how to get those points. So it's kind of funny. I can actually pull it. I can show that to you guys real quick if you want to see it. But if I were to go here, Percepio, this is my little Percepio tool. Hold on, pull it up from the college stuff. Make sure it's not leaking any of my information out. But yeah, here's my little. Up at the top here, here's my little. Now I have 3,465 experience because what I did was I went in and they have a bunch of courses that I can take where oh, I got a compliance thing to go do too. But there's a whole bunch of videos I could watch on all this Linux Essential stuff, but then there was like a test out at the end, so I just went and tested out of all of them. So I finished a bunch of them that way too. I thought that was kind of funny. Anyway, so yeah, that's so now I got, and then I saw that there's a leaderboard, and I was like, well, I could be a leader, and I saw I was already in 5th place, and I'm like, all right, so I've just been reading more and more of these and going through them, and you see like this one's worth 180 XP, and as of yesterday when I started it, I didn't even know there was XP, and I had like 300 and something. Now I've got 3,400. It's dumb. I've just been reading stuff on my, like, as I'm doing other stuff and kind of in my free time, I've just been reading stuff. So. But anyways, let's look at this a little bit while we're kind of hanging out here. This is the exam objectives. If anybody wants to look at them, I think they're, again, as I've said multiple times, in college or in academia world, you just have to check boxes. So they said I have to take it, and I'm like, all right, I'll go take it. So I'm taking it next week, or 2 weeks. But if we were just on a server, you guys could be in one of those labs on Killer Coda if you wanted. There's like sandbox environments. And it just says that you need to know about, so let's see what they've got here. The partial list of use files, systems, you need to know Debian and Ubuntu, and you need to know what long-term support means, right? So maybe we can go Google that a little bit if we wanted to. We should know CentOS, but CentOS has been deprecated for a few years, so I feel like this list is a little old. Actually, now that I think about it, I know this list is old because they have a updated version of the changes. So here's a detailed list of changes from the original one, and they probably have removed some of these as well. But then they've got a bunch of things that you need to know what they are. They want you to know what copyleft is. They want you to know what it means to be permissive in your licensing, what the open source philosophy is, and how that works. So there's 10 components of open source philosophy, right? And you should be able to kind of identify them loosely. and I don't have them all memorized, but here's the, yeah, here they have opensource.org. And there's 10 of them, right? There should be 10 of them. Free redistribution, source code, derived works, integrity of the author source code, no discrimination against persons or groups, no discrimination against fields of endeavor. So you can't be like, hey, you can't use my Linux operating system. Well, if you're a certain person or group, so that's an interesting one. And then you can't, no discrimination against fields of endeavor, which is also like, oh, I don't want anybody to use this to further appliances in the home. I don't want anybody to use my stuff for research in electronics or something, right? You can't stop that. So that's kind of an interesting one. Distribution of the license. License must not be specific to an individual product, right? License must not restrict other software, and license must be technology neutral, right? So you can't just specify this license is only good for, Arch Linux or something. That's not the open source way. So if you guys need that, here it is. But again, if anybody's going to actually go take that test, it's pretty. I think it's pretty straightforward as far as the stuff they want you to know. Where's this? Let's get this out of the way. It's a $120 test as well, so it's like it's pretty low on the testing cost as far as that stuff goes. But here's our exam requirements. So they want you to know these different versions. They want you to know that Android is embedded and what an embedded operating system is. It just means that it's purpose built for the hardware. It's typically what they mean by an embedded operating system. Also, a lot of times we strip out in embedded operating systems, we strip down the kernel. There's the least amount of modules and the least amount of software on the system. So there's that. Yeah, thanks for that, John Vardy. Hopefully this stuff's useful to you guys. You need to know the major... This is one that I think, like, this is kind of silly because I don't do any desktop Linux, right? I've never supported desktop Linux. I ran desktop Linux all through college with an early version of Ubuntu. But I don't do desktop stuff in Linux. I do all server development languages you have to know, and then package management. So I do all of these things, but I don't really do a lot with desktop. So for me, there was a lot of this where, like, I knew about Thunderbird, Firefox, GIMP. I knew about LibreOffice and how that came from OpenOffice, but some of these other ones, and there's one called like Evolution, that's a mail client. I knew about that one, but I didn't know the other two that everybody's been mentioning. So this is probably my weakest area of all of them, is like these different desktop applications. I mean, I just know OpenOffice and LibreOffice and Thunderbird and that kind of stuff. So I've been kind of reading about that. That's what that book was that I was reading about yesterday. It seems like, from what I've been reading, that they want you to know the difference between a compiled and interpreted language, which I think most of us are at least somewhat familiar with that. Go try to run one of these, try to run something in C without running it through a compiler. It's not going to work, right? And once you do, try to look at the source code. You can't anymore, right? Because it's an executable. Should be, pretty straightforward for most people. So, if I do something like type user bin SSH or something like that, I'd see, let's go, strings, is that right? Yeah, I should be able to see, right? Could see a bunch of information about it, right? But the point is, that's a compiled bit of code, right? Right, like that system. I'm not going to be able to read what's going on there without going and looking at the source code, right? Because that's compiled. So, yeah. So JavaScript and Java, they're both being interpreted but they're dropped down into bytecode or whatever by their little Java machine, right? Well, Java for sure is. I don't actually know if JavaScript and all these should just be interpreted. So interpreted at runtime, right? But Java is dropped into like their little bytecode or whatever. Technically, Python can be done like that as well, because you can just push over bytecode with Python as well. I know Ansible does that. So like that kind of stuff, like I feel fine with the questions I've seen on that. It's not a big deal. You need to know your package managers, know how to install stuff. I think that's fine. I don't think that's going to be that big of a deal. Open source philosophy, open source licensing. What is the Free Software Foundation? It is not the Open Source Initiative. Those are two different organizations. Free software is a little more free than like open source, as far as like free software. And if you ever go listen to what's his name? I want to say Richard Stallman. Is that right? Yeah. He doesn't even want you to put passwords on stuff. So, like, I mean, that's an interesting how free he wants stuff to be. Um, in fact, it was a concession for them to even have users, right? It's kind of interesting. They want just you to run processes on a system. So that's kind of an interesting way that their founder looks at things. But then there's the open source initiative, which was the one I just sent as a link. But copyleft, that's a joke off of copyright, and basically it's like you allow people to use stuff. You're very permissive, but you still own control of it. You still control your versioning of things, right? Yeah, NixOS. NixOS is good. We have a few people running NixOS now in the server. I remember we were talking about it a couple weeks ago. GPL, LGPL, so that's the GNU public license, right? And then GPL is on version 3 now because version 2 and 1 did not hold up in court. There's the BSD license. There's Creative Commons. Creative Commons tends to be more towards like web content and allowing like usage of things, right? Free software, open software, FOSS and FLOSS. So free and open source software, and free. I don't know what the L stands for. I had to look that up the other day. I've forgotten what the L stands for. I know that's free and open source software. But then the difference between that and like shareware, it's free, but they want you to pay eventually if you would. And then open source business models, typically you're just providing support for things or you're updating things, right? Those are the two main things people are doing there. But I mean, generally speaking, I feel pretty good about this. I like to study things to a ridiculous amount, so I don't waste the $120 on the test, you know. They want you to know how to use a browser, privacy concerns, configuration options, searching the web and saving content. You know, I've seen some things that people have put together for that. It looks like it's mostly just using Firefox, and it's all multiple guests, so it's going to be kind of whatever. L equals Libre. Yeah, Libre. That's interesting. Terminal and console, obviously we do everything at the console, so we know how to do that. Password issues, how do we set passwords, right? How do we change passwords? I saw some things on that. PassWD, right? Just set the password. So if I did whatever's there, and then I saw that we had, let's just say user add, you know, Scott, just make a user. That's fine. I'm not really worried about it. Cat Etsy pass WD, and we see Scott at the end. I do a pass WD on Scott, and it'll ask me for the password, right? And root can do whatever they want, so we can just set his password to like, and we can just set his password to Scott, right? And then we SU to the user, but we're root, so we can already do it. And then, who am I? Right, I see the user. So I saw some questions on that where people were like, well, what should you use for changing passwords? And then they had all these other commands like user mod and stuff. And I'm like, nope, you just use passwd. So you see bash errors because I'm on a system that has, so if you might wonder where those errors are coming from. We're in an environment where we're mounting home, but we're mounting it as read write, but root squash. I'm pretty sure we've squashed root in here. No, maybe we haven't. Have we? Huh. Well, either way, it still couldn't create the password or the home account because it was already there. Let's go look. Hold on. Oh, and then the user ID for Scott is different than the bash profile, so that makes sense. Huh. Oh, I see. So, we could change that. So then, it's not that big a deal, right? It's not that big a deal, but it's more restrictive on the base node. So I guess it makes sense that the user can't get in. Now, I could go over here and say ID Scott, and then when I made the user Scott, so let's go back into Rocky real quick. he's not the same user, right? In fact, let's say ID node is node exporter. See the one that got who got one then? Let's see, cat Etsy pass WD. Who got 1,000? We don't even have 1,000 on here. Ah, so look, we're gonna do what we call mucking around. Etsy pass WD. We're just gonna muck around here for a second. And now Scott can read his home directory correctly. So we all I did was change the user ID for the user so it matched the system that we were grabbing NFS from, right? Which is super simple. By the way, you might say, Scott, that looks like a real mess in your home lab if you're doing that. Yeah, if you're just one-off building crap like that, that's a mess. If I had a defined Scott user, I would push him from the Werewolf system, and then all the nodes would have him, and then this would never come up as an issue. This is also one of the reasons why you don't want people one-off building users in an environment, because now this user Scott across all systems in all these one-off scripts or whatever would have to always be set to 1,000. And if anything had ever slid in there and been 1,000, now that node is never going to see that user correctly. This is why we control user management a lot in the Linux world. In fact, I would never have used the normal user accounts. If I have LDAP or something, I'm connecting those in on like 48,000, and they're going to be their own space, and they're going to always be. When we make LDAP users, we push them all the way, all the time as a full set. So there's never any conflict. Because that's a really dumb way to stub your toe every night, right? Like, and just be getting called out because some user can't get into some resource because he's got different UIDs in different systems. That's a nightmare to try to maintain. So we just do it right from the start and push all the users and stuff. So if you didn't create home on user creation, where do you land when you log in? Yeah, Zorgal, if a user wouldn't be able to do anything. They would. So what would happen is their environment would come up. They wouldn't be able to read their bash RC, and they would drop into a broken shell. So that's what actually happened right here. When my user, it was right here. My user came up. I tried to turn into Scott, and I couldn't read my home directory. So I just got dropped into a shell that didn't have, I mean, I could still use the user, but I couldn't do anything in my home directory. So basically I was just off I was off poor, I don't even know where it dropped me. I should have looked at where it dropped me, but the point is I couldn't do anything in there. No. But you just wouldn't have any of your setup scripts, any of your, any specialized things that we're going to run an Etsy profile you wouldn't have. It would just be a nightmare, Zorgal. Mainly, the correct answer is don't ever let your users hit that. If that ever happens to your users, you gotta fix that right away. Because if they're able to get in, but they're dropping in, they're not gonna have any of their custom environments. They're not gonna have any of that stuff, and you're just gonna get tickets. Like it's gonna be just a stream of tickets from that user of just all the errors they see. So I would definitely. Highly advise not leaving that very long. But yeah, if you don't create a home, the user can still log in. It's just not going to be a useful shell. Privacy issues and tools, we got to know how Linux does its mandatory access controls, right? Where am I at? Wherever I'm at. How do my access control lists work? How do I have permissions for the user and the group ID of files and that kind of stuff? Common open source application and presentation and projects. I guess they wanted me to know, I was reading about this, they wanted me to know Office, they wanted me to know the specific versions, and I'm like, well, I don't really think I'm going to memorize Writer, Calc, Impress, Draw, Base, and Math, but I don't know. I guess I'll be okay with it, right? Yeah. So there's this. There's all this stuff here for that. Find your way in Linux system. Okay, you got to be able to move around, right? I used to always tell people, like, if I could get my college students to understand at the end of a college course, if I could get them to do CD, PWD, and LS and know what those three things are, I always felt like I had kind of accomplished something. So that was kind of my way of looking at it, right? If I could get them to do those three things, everything, because like a lot of people, you got 100 over the course of time. I kind of determined that, like, if I had 100 students that were wanting to be like network or systems engineers, probably only about 10% of them would like Linux, right? Being out of the command line like this. This drives some people nuts, just being out of the command line all day. But I'd say about 10% of my students like Linux. And then I always said of those students, maybe like 10% of them actually like really excelled at Linux. So, it's a very small percentage that wanted to go into Linux and then also excelled at it. Now I say that, right, as like a guy who's taught many thousands of college students over the years. And I think that like then you might say, well, Scott, that's at odds with where you say any of us can do this. I do think any of you could do this. I think you're going to fall by the wayside if you don't want to do it. And then if you're like, I don't really have a good aptitude for that, I'll just go back to working in Excel spreadsheets or something. Well, yeah, I guess like a lot of times if that's, something you want to do, you'll move away from this. But I do think anybody could do this, right? This type of work if you wanted to. Remove the French language. That's funny. So basic shell, command line syntax, variables, quoting. You guys see me quote stuff a lot when I do like something like this. When I say Ansible, and then let's say I do all, and then I do a -m shell, and then -a, and I want to do some complex command, you'll see me, maybe if I say host name, and then I say uname-r, something like this, you'll see me, what they're talking about here with like quoting is understanding that if I'm quoting this here, I'm sending that in as one block, whereas otherwise this would be interpreted, this right here would be interpreted by the shell as part of the command, and then it would actually break this command up on different lines. But because of the fact that I use single quotes, it's not going to do that. It's going to drop that in as just it's not going to try to interpret this at the command line as it goes into standard in. It's going to read it later. And this becomes really important if I do that. Right, that'll run against my systems. But this becomes really important later when I start doing stuff like this. So if I said echo, let's just cd, let's go back to Rocky 5 real quick, cd to temp. And then let's just say that I was going to, let's just touch test file, right? I got test file in here, right? And if I cat test file, there's nothing in it, right? Everybody agrees with that. And if I echo, this is some data, and then I say something like this, right? And then I, and I throw that into test file, right? That will, if we cat test file, it'll interpret the data. It'll do what's called interpolation, and it'll go read the data. But if I did that same command, and I change this to only single quotes, anybody know how that's going to be different right here? How's that going to be different when I cat out this test file than the original line? It's not going to interpolate, right? So now you get that raw, the actual variable, and maybe you want to do that. Maybe you are populating a script or something, and you do want the $home to be dropped in like that. And sometimes you do want this, and sometimes you do want this. But in quoting, it's different. This is a quote with interpolation, meaning give me the value. Go grab the value and drop the value in there. And this one says, no, just drop it in like it is, verbatim, right? You can think of this as being like exactly what I said. And then if this were to get executed later, then it would drop it in there, right? So there's reasons you might want to do that, right? Like depending on how your scripts work and that kind of stuff. Oh yeah, Linux conferences next weekend. That's true. Need to take a bash class that's like an algebra class. New World Andy, I don't know if you ever come on. We've got a bash, like a primer group that runs. Kolkis runs it, but it's a pretty good little group on bash and like system stuff. He runs that on Saturdays normally. I think they canceled it for the last few weeks. If you go here, they canceled it for the last few weeks, but it's typically, it runs every week. Bash study group, yeah, and those guys do dig in there a little bit. Yeah, those guys run it. It doesn't always have 148 people, guys. It has anywhere between, I've seen 8 to 30 people in there. But Kolkis runs that for us, and it's a pretty good group for people that want to get their feet under them on a lot of this basic command line stuff, right? And then Linux from scratch. He also runs Linux from scratch. But again, he canceled them out for a few weeks just because I think he's going to be out of town and he's been dealing with some other stuff. Yeah. So these are good courses. And one of the nice things about this is, I tell you guys often, like with the systems world, a lot of times nobody will show you how they do command line. Like there's some weird stigmatism, and this is true. Most of you guys will know this. Um, Most of you guys will know exactly what I'm saying when I say it. That have been in the field. There's a lot of people that won't let you see them do command line. They just like they like hide away, like, and they're like, oh, pull up your screen in this meeting, and people won't do it, right? They're like, oh, I don't, I'm not ready. This and this and this. So it's like, yeah, I really but I tell you guys, like every time I've ever like looked over somebody's shoulder or we've done something, I pick up some cool trick from somebody. So like I really try to get people to work together on stuff because it's it's one of these things where it's kind of like, people say rising tide raises all boats or whatever. It's a idea that like I pick up cool little tricks from different people, and people have picked up cool tricks from me, right? And most of my cool tricks I've gotten from other people. But anyway, so this is understanding how quoting works, right? So you do need to understand how quoting works. You know what variables are, right? So you have a bunch of variables to play with. So print env or env or what's some other ones we could do? Print env and env are pretty much the same. Then we have set, right? Set shows you a bunch of stuff that's been set in your environment. And you can look at them like this. So print env word count dash l, env word count dash l. I'd say those are probably about the same. Set is word count dash l, and then the other one is declare dash p, and that's a whole bunch. But declare word count dash l, this one's got a whole bunch of them, and this tells you a bunch of the values that are set in your system already. So you can pull them out, right? If you wanted to see a bunch of variables to play with, you might just play with like print env, right? And then maybe I just want to see print env grep for like home, right? What are my home values? Okay, there's home root, or maybe I want anything with user in it, right? And then now I should be able to echo out user or echo out home and see those values. Now those are my variables. I'm like in my own little shell here, right? So I can see the shell process that I'm running. I can just grep 5079, and I can see here's my bash running, right? Here's my bash, and then my parent ID. It's actually funny. I can only see, yeah, so I can see this, and there's like a PS tree, and I can go look up the process and everything. But I can see my bash shell here. I can see that that's the shell that I'm in. The reason that's important then is if I needed to kill all the processes underneath it or something like that, I could. There's a bunch of different things we can do here, but I have my variables. Where I was going with that is these are my variables. I can modify them. So I can say user equals not root. And then if I echo $ user, I would be not root, right? And I can change my home. I can change home equal to temp, right? And then if I echo home, I would see that home is now temp. So then if I cd with no arguments, it always should take me home, right? This is true in most Linux. Let's go just back here. So I'm in just the root of the operating system. If I cd with no arguments and I told you it should normally send me to home, root's home is slash root, and but I've set my home to be /temp. So where's this going to send me if I just do a cd like this? Anybody know? We could sit around and argue, or we can just say one test is worth 1,000 expert opinions and hit the button and see where it sent me. It sent me to temp, which it thinks is my home directory because that tilde is also home. So I can cd back to where I was, and I can cd with tilde, and that should send me home. And nope, that sent me, well, it sent me to what I set as my home, right? I can cd back to where I was, which is back in the root of the file system. And I can cd ... which would take me up a directory, but I'm already in the root directory, so there's nowhere to go. If I was in temp and I cd ... should take me up one, right? So there's all these things that we kind of just have to, as I was talking about this, like you just have to kind of know how to move around in the command line, right? Variables, we were talking about variables. You should know your shell, right? Your shell for this has been bash. You can see your default shell. So if I maybe grept root from etc pass wd, I have the definition of my default shell right here as bin bash. If I ever wanted to make it so that root couldn't log in anymore, I would change the default shell to something like sbin no login or bin false, a lot of people use, and then nobody can get in there. Nobody could log in as the root user anymore. In fact, I can do that real quick. So vi etc pass wd, go down to this guy, Scott, my Scott user. He was just working just fine a few seconds ago, and we say bin false. Just give him a shell that doesn't really work, right? And then su to Scott, and can't become Scott. Nope, not working. Go fix that. Change him back. Immediately I'm in as the user, right? But we use that to, we can use that for different reasons, but mainly to disable users if we ever needed to. You just can't log in. The interesting thing about that, if you guys are ever in our Bastion nodes, is we do a different thing in here. And we lock you down. So if you're, there's a whole bunch of people in here, but like our Prolog user is anybody can get in on the labs. You can go look at Discord for how to do that. But his directory has been bastion.sh. Well, that's weird. What the hell's that, right? That's not a normal shell, right? That's a script that we wrote, and that script is down in a cherooted jail. So var prolog cheroot bin, and then in here, the bastion.sh is being written every minute in our environment, and this is what's happening on the back end of that. So if you guys have ever logged into our environment, this is what's determining where you're being dropped into in your cherooted jail before you get kicked off into, or as the young people say, yeeted off into the different nodes. This is what's happening in our environment. And I have labs and stuff that show you how to do that. When is the shell not bashed by default? It typically is, but Gox, you can modify that. So I can modify anything I want in a Linux box, right? Etsy login.defs. I can come down here. I can change all kinds of things that are going to be default to our system. Here's the default paths the user gets. Oh, I guess we don't have shell like that. That's interesting. Let's go look. Let's man, oh, I don't have man pages on here. Let's man user add, and let's go down. Typically Shift G to go to the bottom, and it'll tell us, yeah, typically it's looking at login def. Should be login.defs. Etsy scales all our defaults. Oh, here's another one we'll go look at. I've never even looked at this one. Yeah, so here's the defaults that user add is going to use as a command. So there you got that. Radioactive, you just got a lead on job today. Nice. Hey, if you need anything, let me know down in the Discord. And if you want to do, I know me and one of the guys had a one-on-one. Well, we do interview sessions every now and then, but it was pretty much just me and a few other guys, and I did a one-on-one with somebody for like an hour where we just kind of worked through the types of questions you're going to get. So yeah, if you need any of that, just let me know and I'll set one of those up. I tell you guys all the time, as long as I can just show it to everybody. And honestly, I know a lot of people are a little nervous about, talking in front of people and stuff, but you're going to be doing that in an interview. So you just got to it's one of these things where you just got to kind of like plunge, jump in and plunge in and do it, because we can sit around and play with our Linux boxes all day. Most of us are at least hobbyists, but if we want to get into doing this professionally, we got to be able to talk through what we're doing, right? Companies want more and more stuff as we go, and they want to be, they want everything, right? Like company wants you to be like a rock star. Everybody's always talking about, oh, we want these unicorns, and it's like, no, I mean, I can keep your Linux boxes working. That's what I do, right? And I can put together a plan to keep the Linux boxes working, right? And then you really just have to go in those interviews and prove to people that that's what you know how to do, right? All this stuff, this is all just mean, most everything I've shown today, we could go reference at any time. We don't have to memorize it. But we do have to be able to talk about it, because we have to convince somebody, right? We got to be able to show somebody like, hey, I know how to do this stuff. So, all right, so there's that. Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. I didn't even know there was an Etsy default for user ad. That's my first time seeing that. But you guys saw how I found it, right? I just went in and read the man pages and looked for all the config files it's using. And then I see this, and I can change these things as much as I need. So, thanks for the follow. Hopefully this stuff's useful to you. Yeah, and then if you're looking, I mean, Vixie Shima, if you're looking for getting into Linux more, we have a bunch of resources that are free out there. Mainly our course books and everything that we have in Discord. Like, everything in there is free for you guys. We've been running that Discord since 2019. So like, I show people sometimes you can go in, if you were just like, hey, I want to learn Ansible, or I want to ask people about Ansible, you can go up through our Ansible, and people have been dropping code in here for years, like Ansible playbooks that they're troubleshooting or we're working on. But also you could ask people questions about things that they've done, about, you know, like, hey, how did you get to this? How did you get to that? We have a lot of stuff on Killer Coda that's free for you guys as well. So the goal of our group is to get people into doing this stuff professionally. We're all hobbyists. We all play around with this stuff. But I think most of you, if you wanted to, could do this stuff for real if you wanted to. I think you just gotta go spend time with it. I mentioned earlier my college students how, like, there's this diminishing number of them that actually were going to be successful with Linux. Well, I'm not trying to talk trash about my college students. I'm just telling you, like, people will fall by the wayside because this isn't really what they want to do. But if you're like, hey, I want to learn this stuff and I want to spend time with it, I do think I tell people, I often say, we are here for that. That's what we're here for. And then I tell people we might not be the best group around, but we could be, a good group for learning Linux, at least. I often say too, if it's not us, go find somebody that you can learn this stuff with, right? Or somebody you can hang out with. It doesn't have to be us. I tell people all the time, if you can't stand listening to me for more than 5 minutes, go hang out with the people in the group. I mean, we got all kinds of different candor down there, man. Sometimes I have to keep people from going nuts in the Discord all the time. Our Discord is I love Discord, though. I think it's a great place for people to meet and be more persistent than this. Like, this is very one way. Like, you guys you can type, but like, we can't really talk here. But down in Discord, we can hop in, our servers. We can have, discussions, and we're going to have presentations all next weekend. Not this weekend coming up, but the next one. And we're going to have a huge amount of people out there. Done most of this college level computer science. Nice. Really do enjoy stuff like this, learning it, trying it out. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, Vixie, that's what we do. That's we actually got, and this was actually funny. Somebody sent out an email to like a Prolog group, but it was the Portland Linux users group, and they're like, hey, next weekend there's this big event with the Prolog, and I'm like, yeah, my goal has always been to break Discord. Like, we have had a few, the most we've ever had that I know of for sure down in our Discord, in one of our channels, we've had 120. It was over 120, but I would love to see us break some of these, right? Like, because these, I mean, you guys know, we get in our discussions and it just starts picking people and killing them off. And I love that Discord. It says it'll hold 500 people, so we're gonna see if we can get. I don't think we'll be over 500 at all this next weekend, but we'll definitely be over 100 in some of those. So hopefully we get some people doing this stuff. And then, people just in there chat. We got stuff for you to hang out with and talk. People used to sit more down in the channels, but sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But there's stuff going on typically. All right, so where were we at? We were I was looking at this, and we were just going through our Linux Essentials, right? We were just looking through it. Bash Echo history, so we need to know. I'm just jumping into Rocky 5, which is one of the lab boxes. And so what's going on with Bash? Bash has a whole bunch of commands that we can do. Bash is our way that we send standard input in, and it's interpreted and then run through the kernel for processes to run, and then we get standard output or standard error back, right? So Bash is pretty straightforward. We can echo variables, right, to the screen. Our history shows us all the things that we've done in a box, all the stuff that we've done. History is an interesting thing because you can run an individual command. So I can, like, say bang 80, and it'll run that command for me from line 80. We can also just say bang bang, which will run the last thing that we did. And then there's also, you can run things and change things at the same time. I'm not really great at it, but it's basically like something like 80, and then I do something like, I think it's like $shell with like $home or something like that, and it'll switch it for me. I don't remember how to do that. I know I always, oh, is it maybe I need to put a space in there. But anyways, the point is you can switch, you can do some what's that called? I'm blanking on it. Substitution, right? You can do some substitution there as you go. I'd have to look that up. I forget. I don't do that very often, but I mostly will just catch a command and then rerun it and modify the things that I need, right? Yeah, the labs on Killer Coda are all free. Yeah, there's nothing on Killer Coda that you have to pay for. All of mine are free. Yeah, and mine are not tuned directly towards the RHCSA, but we do have a guy who has a bunch of labs that are directly for studying. His name is, if I go to Codeberg, it's right here. It's cracker.codeberg. I'll link this to you guys. He's actually Stovepipe in our server, so I'll link this to you. He's got a bunch of study stuff out there for RHCSA version 10. So if you're doing 10, that's what his stuff's all for. And he has all of these different things for you to study and work through. He used to have it over in GitHub, but he moved off of GitHub in April, I think. Maybe April or May. I think it was April when he got off of there. But yeah, he's got a pretty good study guide for you guys. A lot of people have used it and liked it. So I'm all for... I even told him he should stream, right? He should just stream and show you guys this stuff. But he's always lurking around a little bit. You can always ask him questions in Discord and stuff too if you need. So hopefully that gives you some stuff. Oh yeah, but if you need, so if you're getting ready, hold on, if you're getting ready for the RHCSA, you probably want to jump into our actual, Killer Coda is on Ubuntu, so it's not good for you. Lamborghini, you probably want to go here in our Discord, and you go to our Prolog lab environment, and then you go to our pinned messages, and this tells you how to add your key. So you can just add key with your key, and it'll give you the connection information, and then you can just SSH into our environment. And you could have if you need a Rocky 10 box, I know Rocky's not exactly RHEL, but it's pretty close, right? It's 90% of the way there. There's some proprietary stuff that we don't get, but my nodes, so if we SSH to test env1 Rocky 10, so these are a little longer named nodes, but these boxes are RHEL 10, so they are, well, they're Rocky 10, but it's pretty close. So like if you needed to go in here and let's see, you wanted to do some, oh god damn it, I'm hitting the wrong button. If you needed to like go look at repos or setting up repos or something like that, you could practice in here. Now they're not exactly the same repos as you get through RHEL, but the concept of setting up a repo is the same, however you set it up, right? But if you need an environment that is at the end of the day, the way you get into that is through the Discord, and the bot will set you up with as long as you have a key, you can do all that stuff. So, all right, what do I got down here? Oh yeah, Lamborghini, you can do whatever you want in there. I have that VLAN off. Yeah, you can go in there. I think the only caveat is we use them on the weekends for if you wanted to like attack each other in that environment. That's like the weekends are for pen testing type stuff. But during the week, yeah, you can do whatever you want in there. Yeah, I don't care. I mean, our resources on that are like nothing, and then when you're done, you just reboot those boxes. If you guys haven't seen our environment here, we use Werewolf because Werewolf makes everything stateless. If I go, I'll show you guys this real quick. If I just go to like Auto 1, let's go with Rocky 5 because I've been messing with Rocky 5 all day. So if I go to Rocky 5 real quick here, I'll pull this server up. He's just sitting there, right? He's just chilling. And I'm going to go to that node real quick. I'm just going to go to the node and I'm going to say DNF history. We've been adding stuff and I added ngrep because I was messing with it. And I'm going to reboot this guy, right? And over here, you're going to see him boot, and he's going to go through an iPXE process and pull a container image, and it's going to expand down on that node in a stateless fashion. So it's a stateless node. He's going to boot with his two-stage jacket. He's already found out who he was through DHCP, and he's going to boot up right here. and then he's just going to be a clean version of the server with none of the changes I did to him in the last week or whatever. I've been messing with that node, right? So yeah, you can do pretty much whatever you want on there, Lamborghini. Yeah, and those boxes will just crash well before you use all the memory because it's tempfs. So they're and that's also kind of by design where that box is back up, right? That server's connected. He's ready. And then now if I SSH back to Rocky 5, and I did the DNF history to show you that now you only have the last update I did when I built the image, right? So the image was what was pushed to that box again, not anything that was there. It was like a trapdoor fell and everything came up clean again. There's nothing that's changed on there. Hannah Montana Linux. Somebody mentioned that in Discord the other day too. That's kind of funny. Yeah, Vixishima, I tell people all the time, use at the beginning, at the earliest stages of this, it doesn't really matter what you use. You know, as far as like, you just need to get on the command line, right? That's why I tell people like Killer Code is so good because you're at least at a command line, even though it's Ubuntu and maybe you're like, well, but professionally, there's not a lot of, there's a way more Red Hat and Rocky type Linux around in the world. But that being said, just getting on the command, if you have no command line yet, getting on the command line is the most important part, right? Being like that little typing cat, you're just like getting on the systems. And then at the end, when you're, you know, ready to cut over after you've been doing this for a few months, then I do recommend for like hobbyists and stuff to get into the professional distros. Like Rocky, I've set up Rocky on, you know, a few tens of thousands now. So maybe, let's say, maybe closing in on 30,000 Linux systems for the government in the last 3 years. I've been building all kinds of systems, right? I build HPCs for the government, mostly through my company Redline. Well, not my company, but the company I work for, Redline. And then you know, I just built all these systems out there. Yeah, probably closing in on 30K. But we've done almost exclusively Rocky. RHEL has only been on a few companies that were very well, companies that had a lot of funding, that's for sure. But also they really just wanted RHEL in their environment because they were an all RHEL shop. But Werewolf can run all that stuff for you. It's kind of actually nice. All right. Anyways, but if you were wondering, yeah, you can do whatever you guys want in those lab environments. They're for you. They're for you guys to get in there and practice and get better at this stuff. So most people use them for this, right? These books here that teach you all the, like, we've got a course here, and you could go through and you could do the course on your free time. If you do the course with the group, when we run it through the Discord, we run it like for 8 or 12 weeks at a time, 16 weeks sometimes. And when we run it, we have discussion posts, and we run it a lot like a college class. And then at the end of that, you get a cool little certificate that looks like this. Where's that certificate at? So people have opted in, right? So anybody's name that's on here is opted in. We don't put people's names on there unless they want to. But I'm still going to refresh that until it comes up to me, so I don't give anybody. Again, everybody's volunteered to be on that page, but I'm going to when it refreshes to me. Well, I think Shane would be okay with it. Here's me. When I can go, this is what my cool little certificate looks like. So if I ever needed to print that out and say, oh yeah, I was the course administrator for this, or if you had done the course with us, you would get one that looks more like this. I'm just going to use Shane as an example. And this is him proving that he went through the Prolog Linux Security Engineering course. And this number right here, this right here, he can actually, oh, well, is that it? Right here. This right here should work if I go to verify. So I should be able to go here and verify him. So, and you say, well, why would you want that? Well, because then if he puts that string on his resume, and it's actually the whole string right there, he can put that on his resume, and it will take anybody that goes and looks at it directly to the page and show that he is one of our people that did it. Yeah. yeah. But the point is, people opted in for this, right? And then they just wanted to be shown on there. And if you're looking around in there, this actually started working. When I first deployed this the other day, it wasn't there, but now you should be able to go to administrator or administration. It'll just show you the administration stuff. You can do security. It'll show you just the security page, the automation page. And then if you want, you can look at all the pages, but they all link back to the same books, but the books are free. You guys can do whatever you want out there. But if you were like, hey, I want a few hundred hours worth of time, hands-on stuff that I need to do, that's all set up in there. So, and it's all free. So, big course project if you do this. I'll show you guys here what it looks like if you go to the worksheet, right? So you were doing lab 1 in this case. It actually links back to when I recorded it. So here's the lab 1 unit 1 recording. And so if you need to get in there and you're just like completely lost, this will walk you through all the stuff that I was doing, right? Let's see, what is it doing? Oh, I was walking through, this is the security one. Yeah, this is security engineering one. So this is about STIGs and hardening a system and that kind of stuff. This is lab 3? This is module 3. Oh, this is 1. I don't know. I don't know why it showed that other stuff. But anyways, the point is it's all there for you guys to get through. And it's a lot, right? This is a big elephant to try to eat. You can't probably do it all in one day, but if you block some time aside, you could probably get it. I think most of you can work on it and learn it if you wanted to, right? Some people just fall into these roles and some people have to work at it, but I do think anybody can do this stuff. Yeah, there's no restrictions. You can do whatever you want on there. However, those boxes, like if you were to like run like a bit miner on there or something, what would happen is this system would fill up its tempfs and it would just crash. Because these boxes, it's like they're good enough to like get you across the ferry, but if you were like to drive your Jeep on it and try to go across the ferry, your Jeep's gonna tip over, right? Like this is a rickety like canoe, or maybe a couple of canoes strapped together, right? This is not some super heavy, environment. We can build the environment up. I have things that are much more production like, but our lab systems are designed to just be kicked over and brought back up. So that's the kind of thing that we do. All right, I'm gonna take a break. Hourglass. Pull up my little hourglass. I've been doing this for 2 hours now. So I'm gonna say right here, take a break. Take a break and think about Linux. And we'll do 8 minutes. There's my little 8-minute break. I will go to that stream. All right, I'll be back. There you go. Now that's nice and cozy for you guys, right? I'll be back. All right, what's our time looking like here? You guys like my little penguin there? All right. All right, I think that's hilarious. We still got some time, so feel free to walk around, take a couple more minutes. Yeah, I mean, Arch is a fine way to start. I think Arch is a. I mean, people always tell me they run Arch, and I'm like, that's fine. When you're going into the production, once you start wanting to work for companies, I would advise looking at like what the companies are using, right? So mainly you're going to find that you mostly RHEL derivatives are what's in the industry. There's some stuff you're going to find that's doing other stuff, like if you go work for Canonical or something, they're all Ubuntu, but that's their product. So something to think about. All right, we'll let this finish up. What was I doing? I was just kind of showing you guys. I was just working through these test questions, kind of. Was it this? Oh, this was the study materials, obviously from one of our own. So this, you can find this link in our certification channel as well. It's not pinned. I really should pin this. I'll for sure. I'll at least drop it in there. Where's that at? Certification's up near the top. Boom. Yep. And then, you know, obviously the maintainer of that is in our Discord as well. So he's there if you guys need him. Let's get rid of this. I was showing you guys Killer Coda because that's free, and then we were mainly here. So, well, I'll give it a minute. Double Nickels, subscribe with Prime. How's it going? How's Idaho treating you? Hopefully you're doing good up there. We are, God, what was Phoenix today? 114 or something? Just murder out here. Let me message the wife something real quick. $90 today, 75. 75 is pretty nice. I don't know if I told you. If you guys don't know, I've known Double Nickel a long time. Me and the wife, when we went up to Alaska, it was like 45 to 65 the entire trip. So we went up to Seattle, and then we took a little cruise out of Seattle. I'd never been on a cruise before. Pretty fun. You just go, and it's basically just parks everywhere, and you don't have to do anything except walk off the boat and walk back on. But my point in telling you that is it was like, I think it was like 45 to 65 the entire time we were there, and it was absolutely beautiful. Even when we were around the glaciers and the little seals and stuff in the water, or actually they weren't even seals, they were otters. They were otters, that's what they were, yeah. So probably saw I took the car out the weekend before that. I saw that, yeah. I see everything on Facebook, yeah. I'm some of you guys know I'm chronically online in different capacities, right? But yeah, no, that's awesome that you got to do that. I'm gonna move this up just a little bit so it's out of the way like that. Yeah, there we go. All right, I'm gonna stop the timer. We're just gonna keep going through some more stuff. The wife's coming home. She messaged me, said she's on her way home, and we normally do date night on Friday night, but we did date night last night. But it looks like her stuff's done, so maybe we're gonna do date night tonight again as well. So that's kind of cool. We were talking about command line and how you get help, right? So man pages and info pages. I don't have man on these systems, which is kind of annoying because they're so stripped down. But I should probably go add that into the image. But we'll go over to Werewolf and we'll man something like ping. And the manual pages are just where you go get information about something, right? If you need to dig in specifically about something. The way I like to use man is I will typically do ping-h or something and get help first, right? If I'm trying to figure out some specific way of doing ping, and then maybe I find or I don't find what I want, but then I'm like, okay, there's this path for MT, this is for permutation, right? And I can say do, don't, want, or probe, and I say, okay, I don't really know maybe what that is, but it's for maximum transmission unit discovery, and if my layer 3 packet is able to be actually, we can set it so that we don't allow a fragmentation bit to be set, right? So let me show you what that looks like. So I could ping -C1, to www.yahoo.com, right? Let's just ping over there. And it went through. Cool. But if I do an IP ADDR, I see that that interface that went out has a maximum transmission unit of 1500, right? So I can come back here to my ping and I can actually set the, you can touch that if you want to, it's up to you. My size can be 1600 bytes, right? So I can say the size is 1600, and that ping, even though it was bigger, it's 1600 bytes, but then with the header of 28, so there's a frame header that goes on it, 1628. Well, how did that work if I only had a maximum transmission unit of 1500? Well, with IP at the packet level, you can fragment. So this actually went, and to us, we only saw one packet, but it was sent as 2 different frames at layer 2. But at the packet layer, we can say, do not cut this up. This is too important, guys. If we're gonna ship this water bottle I've got right here, right? This water bottle right here cannot be cut in half, guys, if you want to ship it. If you had to fit this in an envelope, and you're like, well, Scott, we can't fit in an envelope, but we can fit it in 2. And I go, do you know what happens if you chop this water bottle in half? You lose everything that's important about it, right? Well, as opposed to, I don't know, you know, maybe I have something like this. I'm grabbing tools off my desk. Got a little Allen key here, right? You guys all know what an Allen key is. And I got this little thing, and maybe they're like this stuck together. And I go, no, you can break those apart, right? Those are perfectly fine to break those apart. Well, let's go test that. Can we validate with ping? So I'm gonna say -M, do set the don't fragment bit. So do set the don't fragment bit, and now it can't send. It doesn't work anymore. And you say, wait, Scott, can you prove to me that a 1400, so MTU is 1500, right? Could you prove to me that like a 1460 packet would send? I like spaces. I prefer spaces, guys, like this, because that looks more clean to me, but you can make them touch if you want. Yeah, that'll work. But if I just walk that up to 1500, and by the way, the reason I don't use Google, I normally just ping www.google.com, but once you start malforming packets, it does not listen anymore. Once you start sending different size pings, it doesn't respond anymore, which is probably a security thing for them. They're a big organization, and they don't mess around like that. But my point is, you know, if you're reading man pages and stuff, you can go find all this stuff out. Now, you might say, well, Scott, I didn't know what that MTU stuff was. Okay, fine. That's more of like a networking thing, and you have to spend some time with it. But this is super useful for you, especially in the high-performance compute space, if you're trying to do end-to-end testing of packets, and you want to make sure that, like, you know, your networking team has assured you that the entire path is all MTU 9000, which is a jumbo frame, and you're like, I'm just not getting the speed I expect out of this SAN. And this is a real use case. This really happened to me, gosh, 2012 maybe. It was back when I was working at Lockheed, and I'm like, guys, I'm not seeing the speed I expect. I don't have views into all of your networking the whole way, but when I ping and then I say don't fragment, and I do a 9000 bytes, I fail getting over there. But when I go down under 1500 and or you know, whatever, when I'm under it, I don't fail on my fragment. So somewhere along the path, I don't have that jumbo frame set. And it's, again, I tell people all the time, we don't do this stuff to argue with people and be like, your shit's broken. No, what you're doing is you're showing, that's funny, your S is broken. No, what you're doing is you're just stating the way things are, right? You're just saying, hey, I can prove that I'm not getting a jumbo frame the entire way because I'm not getting, something is blocking me. And then I actually, in this actual use case, there's this guy, Chuck, and he was like, oh, no, my stuff's busted. And one of these paths was only set at the default, and then he fixed it and everything worked, and I got the speeds I expected and went about my day, right? We both went about our days, weren't mad at each other, whatever. Didn't have to call in managers or whatever. We were just 2 guys figuring stuff out because of the tools that we were using, right? And this is, try to tell you guys, like, this is what we do as engineers. We figure stuff out. If this stuff all just worked out of the box, the salesperson would set it up. They need us to figure out the hard stuff. I have a friend who's an economist who says, you know, Scott, a lot of what we do is hard stuff that people don't want to do, or hard stuff people can't do. And he works in economics, so he does a lot of math equations that most people can't do. But in my space, I work on a lot of stuff that people could do, but they don't want to bother to learn it. So, you know, that's what makes my skills valuable, and that's what would make your skills valuable if you guys wanted to get in this field. Because I'm telling you right now, you try to show a manager that or something right there, or you try to show a project manager this, how you found the right answer, you'll watch their eyes glaze over as they think about, like, dinner tonight or whatever else they want to do besides talking to you about it anymore, you know? Um, and some of you have been in the industry and know what I'm talking about. People's eyes just literally glaze over as you talk to them. They just think about anything else than what you're telling them. So, but it gives us that gives us a lot of job stability, right? Because nobody else wants to or will just look at a black screen with white and green letters all day. Okay, so man, info, locate. I'm a big fan of find, but there were a few different questions that I saw that use the locate tool. But for locate to work, you have to have there's like a system database for this, and locate is not going to be on all your versions of Linux. I can guarantee you locate's not going to be a command everywhere, but find is. So my advice is always to learn find, but I guess if I got to spend time with locate, I'll learn a little bit for the test. But I don't even, is it even on here? Locate? Yeah, I don't know. But I do know that you need to have the update DB, and then you have to run that every now and then. So let's see, is that actually being Etsy? Let's go to Etsy cron dot. Let's see if cron dot if I could type Anacron. Yeah, I don't even see, so let's go up one here. That's grep dash I for, go with R, should be capital R. What is that? I should have done that off of cron. Huh. Let's do that again, but update DB. Command alias locate. Okay, so there's that. We are running SE Linux on this box too. I thought we were. But so my point is, even as I look for that stuff, I don't see update DB running anywhere. So I'm pretty sure you have to manually update that every now and then, and that would be something you'd want to cron. But even at the end of the day, that just me is just a nightmare. I'd rather just use find. But like, I mean, so locate is dependent. The point I was showing here is that locate is dependent on other things, and that just seems to me like, yeah. I don't use this tool at all. I do not use this tool at all. I use find. And then there's a locate path. Oh, there's a system timer for it. Let's do systemctl grep for update. Okay, there's the update DB timer. There's the timer. Okay, so it's running daily. Okay. Yeah, so it runs it daily. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, and again, I don't know anything about that tool, but I'm just kind of figuring it out as I go. If massive changes happen to your file system, then you're trying to like find things until that update DB has been run, that locate won't find it. So that's one of the reasons I don't know. I'd rather just use the find command, but you know, if that's a requirement, I'll learn locate enough to pass. But that's also a pretty low weight. But I don't like leaving points on the table when I take tests. So I need to know files, directories, hidden files and directories, home directories, absolute and relative paths. I think that's all pretty okay. I need to know how to use ls. I need to know what recursive listings are. cd, the dot, which is the directory I'm in, and dot, which is my parent directory. And then home and tilde, which is just a reference to home, which references the variable home, because I've shown that earlier. I should be coming home soon, but let me see. Let's see what she says. She got done with the dinner. She took the niece out for birthday dinner. Well, she took the niece and then her sister and then some other people out for dinner. The niece wanted to go to I think like a what is it, teppanyaki? Is that right? Or teppen? Somebody tell me how to say that's the tables where they do like the teppen something. I think it's teppanyaki, but I could be wrong. And then they cook it all in front of you and they like flip shrimp to you and stuff. Yeah. I don't know. Anyways, where was I at here? Yeah, find all that stuff. Creating and deleting file. I mean, like basic commands, right? You just gotta know how to use them. Yeah, I think that's all. I think that's all pretty straightforward. Yeah, I guess hibachi would be another way I think people say it. Well, I thought they were called teppanyaki cooking tables, but I could be wrong. I probably knew that at one point in my life, but we need to know how to do command redirects. I might take, just so you guys know, I might take these as well, like all these things they want you to know here, and I might take these and turn these into some Linux labs as well, and just say, you know, understand some of the basics of these around the like over in Killer Coda, so that if somebody were trying to learn, so some of these things, I mean, you just got to go study them, right? These topic ones, you really just got to go study, but topic 2, you got to just be able to move around in the Linux box. So I think all of these things can just be touched and understand. Call it the hibachi polis, a palette, hibachi place. Yeah, I think that's probably pretty accurate, something like that. All right. Yeah, I think I might turn some of these, just their objectives, into things that you want to know how to do. You need to know how to use tar. Nobody ever remembers tar, which is kind of funny. You got to be able to tar stuff up. Let's sh Rocky 5, cd to temp, df-h on temp, and we see that we have some space. So I should be able to do something like this. Right? Nothing really in here. And I just, let's just make a file. dd in file equal dev 0. So we'll just be well, actually let's do dev random, and then out file is going to be equal to temp big file, block size is equal 1024k, and count is equal to, we'll do 2000. So he'll be a 2 gig, we'll do 1, so it'll be a 1 gig file, right? Boom. And it's going to take a little while because it's randomizing the bits, and you never use random when you want to test the speed of the I/O of the system. You're only using random when you want to actually test the processing. We're not testing either of those right now. We're just making a file. But I just wanted it to be a file that we could then compress. So there's big file. And if I do an ls-l on big file, then we'll see that he's about 1 gig. ls-lh will be a little easier to read because now it's human readable. It's about 1,000 megs or a gig, right? And then I can do something like this to it. If I have tar on here, which I should have on here, yep, and I should be able to do czvf. So it's going to create it. It's going to compress it with whatever compression we have. It's going to be verbose as it does it, and I forget what f does. But we're going to save it to bigfile.tar.gz, and we're going to save big file as the file. So the target is the last thing, and then where we're saving it to is before. And I'm going to run that, and now it's going to try to compress that file down as much as it can and make it into a tar. So it tars it up into one file if it were a directory. So what a tar is a lot like is if you guys have ever seen how people used to carry briefcases and have all their files in the briefcase, and then they would go like this and they would close it so they could carry it as one piece. That's what tar does. Tar does not actually do any compression by itself. It is just taking directories and going like this with them and taking them somewhere else and laying them back out. That's all it does. That's the best explanation I've heard of it, is it just takes all of them and puts them together. So now if I do an ls-lh in this directory, I'll see that tar. All right, so it couldn't actually compress it any. So it's 1001 megs, slightly bigger actually, which is kind of funny because it's just random, right? It's just random, so it's hard for it to compress it. But now I've got that here. And then I should be able to extract it. So I'm going to go ahead and RM, and actually we're going to check some big file. Big file. It takes a little time because we're check summing it. All right, and we could SHA-1 sum it as well. Right? That'll take a second. And then we're just going to RM-RF big file. Man, I wish I could type. All right, there we go. Now, if I tar-xzvf, so we'll untar big file, it'll untar it in this location right here. And we should be able to then just check summit and SHA-1 summit, and it should be the exact same file. We deleted the file, so it wasn't there. We're going to check summit, it should be the exact same thing. And we'll SHA-1 summit, and this should be the exact same SHA-1 hash. Yep. So it's the exact same file. Any recommendation for Linux container labs? Yeah, by the way, I'm not the only guy on Killer Coda, but Killer Coda has awesome labs on containerization. Yeah. So you can come down here, and it's kind of hard because I got my system in dark mode. Here's some Podman labs. Here's some Falco labs, but a bunch of these, since it's all Kubernetes, there's a lot of container stuff. And one of the ones I often recommend people is the CKS, right? So you're doing Kubernetes security. But if you scroll down here, as part of your Kubernetes security, you do like container hardening. So you're given a Docker container and they want you to like clean it up a little bit. And then here's container namespaces for Docker. So like, yeah, it's got a security edge to it, but it's kind of like if you're trying to get in there and learn containers, but you're learning them from the perspective of security. Yeah, I'll go show you real quick. So let's go into like container hardening. Given a container image, harden this box. This is what they want you to do in this lab. And this one was not written by me. This was written by a guy named Kim Woosterkamp. Yeah. So let's go here and let's go, boom, we'll make it a little bigger so you guys can read it. And it says there's a file in root image called Dockerfile. And it says, hey, how could we make this better? How could we apply some simple containerization things that would make this be a little more hardened and a little more secure? And there's a few things. We can remove layers by moving this into one command. So we can, and they actually give you an answer too afterwards. You can see the solutions down here for the things you would clean up. But instead of just running Ubuntu, there's a implied at the end of this Docker file, and in all files in all systems, there's an implied :latest. If you don't give a version and you just say from Ubuntu, it will always pull the latest version of Ubuntu, right? Well, I don't want to pull the latest version of Ubuntu. I want to pull a very specific version of Ubuntu because that's more secure. In my company, I probably have a version that's been pipelined down and we've done whatever checks we wanted to in lower environments, and it's the only one that's authorized to be run in prod, right? That's typically how pipelines work. Like, we build things, we test them, we prove them all out, we walk through all our different environments with them for whatever we need to say that they're good, check all the boxes, and then we have a version. So just saying Ubuntu like this is not acceptable, right? Like, you would never have a deployer that actually does this. It would be Ubuntu, and then it would be the version, and maybe that version is prod. Maybe the only things that get tagged to prod are things that come through your pipeline the right way. But even then, they should still typically have a version on them. So we're going to use a specific version. So I'm just going to VI the Docker file. I'm just going through what he says to do right there. So the Docker file, the very specific version is 20.04. That's what he said. Now right here, he wants us to minimize the number of layers. So to minimize the layer, and what happens is every change you make inside of a container adds a new layer. So what's happening here is I took 2 lines and I made them into one, and I said, do this first one, and if it works, right? So that's a test for if it exits with a 0 return code, then run this next part, which is to install curl. Hold on, guys. The wife's calling me. Give me a second. I'm back. That was the wife. You gotta take calls from the wife. What else do they say? Remove the hard-coded secret. Yeah. You don't want a hard-coded secret here. So we need to get rid of that. And then it says to pass in the container during runtime. So we're gonna get rid of this. I think we could drop that whole line. And then we could pass in as tokens. So we can actually just modify this to token. Oops, token. Like that. And then make it possible for that. Oh, yeah. And then there's our command. We don't want the shell anymore. So I think we actually, it wants us to remove that, right? So anyways, by the way, if you're doing this, I haven't done this one in a while, you can go and look at the answers. So there's the 2004. Here's the make them all on one line, right? Same thing. And install curl, yep. And then down here, so this guy, my point is this gives you all of the things to do. This one was remove the head and do URL token. So we also needed to clean up the URL, right? So we can actually just remove this line. Environment URL, and then we can just pass in the URL token. Yeah. So $. I don't even know what I was in there. So $, URL, and then token, right? So we can pass that in. And then the last one was solution 4 was to clean up the bin bash, right? So we had to add this run. Right? So we don't want people to be able to do any bash, right? And then when we're all done, we can test it. So we can build it. And if it didn't break anywhere, then it should run through or whatever. So the question was, the question was, where would I go for that kind of stuff? I'd go to Killer Coda because it's still just free. If you wanted to dig more in, Code Cloud is pretty good, but Code Cloud has a cost, right? There's a bit of a license. I think they're like 10 to 15 bucks a month, which isn't bad if you can get your company to pay for it. But if you're paying for it yourself, I tell people all the time, I would spend hundreds of hours on Killer Coda before I spent any money on anything else, even though I think Code Cloud is fantastic. But well before I ever got into that, guys, I would go spend so much time on this because I've told you guys this before. I've had college students come to me. I've been teaching college for 18 years now. In December, it'll be 18 years I've been teaching college. I've had students come to me and tell me they absolutely hate like Cisco command line. And I'm like, man, you're in your 3rd year. Because they'll ask me like, what's the job look like? I'm like, you're doing the job right now. You're doing all these commands in Cisco. And they're like, I hate it. And I'm like, man, I don't tell them this, but I'm telling you guys this. That's an expensive freaking mistake. 3 years of your time and thousands of dollars of money, maybe even tens of thousands of dollars of money to find out that you don't like what you're going to do. I think I might have told you guys, I have a family member who got his bachelor's degree in chemical engineering, and we were all hanging out, and it was like his graduation. This was a few years back, so I'm not like I'm not telling tales out of school or anything, but this is an actual family member of mine who I said, so when are you going to get into the field? What do you plan on doing? He goes, oh, I never want to do chemical engineering again in the rest of my life. I was like, but I'm like sitting there, I don't drink, but I had like a, what's it, like the apple juice, the cider, it's like a champagne, but it's like a cider. I'm sitting there like this, and I'm like, you don't ever want to do chemical engineering? Oh no, I never want to do chemical engineering again in my life. I'm like, well, what are we celebrating then, right? But anyways, my point is, isn't that kind of an expensive time to learn that like you hate it? I'd rather go here and play around in the playgrounds and do stuff on Linux, even if you go to Linux labs and then go, I hate this, and then just go somewhere else, right? Because like that's free. Like you could learn, you go play with Istio for a few minutes, go, I don't like Istio. I like Helm. I don't know. They're not even really comparative. But my point is, you could find anything you wanted here free well before you ever went to school for it. And I tell people about like expensive mistakes. God, it's an expensive mistake to spend all that time in school just to find out you hate what you're doing. So that's my thoughts. Linux using our HCA RHEL 10 course by Sander, and I paused in W3 school bash course and said it makes more sense to me and explains the commands. Yeah. And I've been doing this stuff 25 years and I don't have any certifications in Linux. I have all kinds of certifications in dumb shit, mostly just because I thought it was fun to go take certs on a bunch of different stuff. And then some of it was also to piss off my security teams. Yeah, I think that it's great that Killer Code has all these free sites for you guys. So anyways, this is where you would go and you would build it. But the question was, would you just grab something off of the internet? No, absolutely not. In a production environment, we don't grab stuff off the web anyways. We always point it internally as well. So do I trust the image from Docker Hub? Typically, no. This would be well tested before it ever got to us. And we may pull something as a base image from Docker Hub, but then we're going to do our tests on it. We're going to run our Trivy. By the way, they show you how to run Trivy if you've never run Trivy as a security tool. It's right here. So here's your Trivy. Where's that at? Vulnerability scanning. So seeing vulnerabilities that have been exposed. And Trivy is a scanner that you can use to ensure that nothing's ever into your environments that's not at least past, known vulnerabilities. So yeah, to that question, like there's all kinds of stuff out there. F equals file name. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's that kind of stuff. There's a lot going on. And then what did I do here? I was just get rid of everything big, right? So we got rid of all the big files. We see that our space has been freed back up on this box. Searching and extracting data from files. I think that one's pretty straightforward. We know how to do most of that. Most of the regular expression stuff, know how to do that. It's good. Grep, less, cat, head, tail, sort, cut, WC. We did all those today. We might not have done tail today, but I think we've done everything else here. We did sort. We did sort earlier. If you guys were around when we were looking at all the processes, we were sorting them and uniquing them. I don't use cut very much. I use awk instead. So awk will do all the same functions as cut, but they do want me to know cut. So, oh, it looks like they make me do the full thing. Main things that I use with cut are just if I need the character list or the delimiter that I'm going to use. So instead of delimiter, instead of tab for the field delimiter, you could use something else. Most people will just cut with -C and then just take the characters that they need, which is fine too. Yeah. Again, I don't use cut very much. I use awk for most things. And you can count back. Then you can count from 1 to the end. And then you can go via bytes or characters or fields. So this is how you do ranges. So yeah, that's pretty straightforward for the most part. Turning commands into a script. You gotta know how to put together your scripts. We have, again, the bash guys on Saturdays do a lot of scripting. And then a lot of people show different scripting stuff. We have mostly in our Discord, if you're in our Discord, again, all kinds of wild stuff going on in Discord. But typically in bash and systems tricks, people will drop in what they're doing, and you can learn scripting kind of over time by kind of looking what other people do. You can ask questions in there. We have a few guys that are really, really good at shell scripting, bash scripting. In fact, one of our guys does that almost exclusively for his work with a big cloud provider. So anyways, I feel good about all those things. A lot of that stuff comes from earlier stuff too, so that's good. Difference between Windows OS X and Linux. Okay, well, Linux is the best, so there you go. Distribution lifecycle management. This is actually a big one. You should know how to find the version ID that you're on and then where it is in the life cycle. So like Rocky lifecycle. And they've got their release version and guide here. So if we're on Rocky 8, this is the life cycles, if they're supported anymore or not. Here is, should be down here, we should see 9. Here's their release schedule, so for what month it was released. And then let's see if we can find, they only had 8 here as an example. Let's go to 9, here's 9. So I'm on version 9.8, so this one is supported. Here's the current version of the release kernel. I'm on 5.14.687, so I'm actually just ahead of this, but that's the original release kernel, May 28, 2026, and then its end of life is November of 2026 for Rocky Linux 9, right? Rocky 10, they're only on version 10.2 for now, and we can go check those if we want to. Hey, Johnny Man, how's it going? Just kind of hanging out. The wife's coming home, so she should be here in a little bit, and then I'm gonna go hang out with her. So we're just kind of hanging out. We're going through Linux Essentials, right? This is like the base stuff that I think people probably need to know. And I was talking about how I might take some of these and turn some of these general ideas into some of our Linux labs, just so we're directly hitting. Like our labs are just designed to show you around Linux and get you better at it. But if people wanted to get ready for a cert, there's no reason not to at least understand most of these concepts in a, I guess, like in a formal way, right? Like we could look at all the different things. So, all right, we got that. Showing you guys everything in the system. All the system's been updated. We've got, we just updated the other day, and I did July 19th, and I put that name on there. We probably won't normally do the full name like that, but that's been applied on all of our nodes. All our nodes that are Rocky 9 anyways are on the updated image. So we have that. That's kind of good. What else? And we patched those all with... We patched that all with this, right? So when we were updating things, and then when we go... If you ever do that, you get that kind of stuff going. That's an old thing. If you ever, so normally you want to LS, but if you ever SL, it locks your terminal for the Steam locomotive, which is just a funny thing that people will do to mess with other admins on their systems. And we did that when we were writing this. We added the SL in there as we were doing our general hardening of our systems. And then we were doing, and then there was an update when if we wanted to do kernel update, we could, but only if we set it to yes. By default, it would be no, right? And then it would update the kernel if we wanted to, and then it would rebuild the Dracket. So this is anytime we need to rerun and update a new version of that image. So we could do that more often if we wanted to. We could keep the systems really hardened and up to date if we need to. Yeah, Double Nickel, that's not there by default. The SL tool, that's not there by default. That is there to annoy admins who type fast and mess up LS and SL. And you'll know if you're ever like on a system and like there's a lot of people watching and you know that somebody's gonna mess up, you know, they're just waiting for you. They're just waiting to get you, right? And then you literally have to just sit there for 3 or 5 seconds or whatever it is. Is that what it is? Is it Slow Train? I didn't know what it was. I thought it was just Steam. That's funny. Yeah, I bet. I mean, I believe you. It's not gonna give me any help. Here, we could do this too. So there's SL, right? I should just be able to RPM QI SL, and then it'll tell me SL. There we go. RPM QI, and then it tells me everything about how I got on the system. Yeah, I mean, you could have been right. It looks like they're saying Steam Locomotive. I was just guessing. I didn't know. But Slow Train would have been also funny. Yeah, I don't. But this is how I would find if I need to know, and if I need to know when it was installed on the system. That's very important for us, guys. We installed this. It looks like we installed this. Hold on. So DNF history. It looks like we installed this. How was this on here? On June 30th when we did an update. So on June 30th we installed one tool, so it must have been that. But then we updated this later. So this is from an older version of the image. This is from back here when we installed on 6:30. So actually it's funny. I must have installed that on the image manually, and then I said, I'll add it to the Ansible so that it's all in the future builds, because we were just messing around, right? Like if I went back and pulled this image clean from the Werewolf repository. By the way, guys, if you need to know, the Werewolf repositories are all out here for all the packages they support. Here's all the node images that they support right here. If you guys need them. And they've actually expanded these recently. I just looked up the other day. They just expanded. Now they got Ubuntu versions on here. So just 3 months ago, they added a new version of Tumbleweed, which is SUSE, right? It's one of the SUSE ones. Leap is also SUSE. And then they added Debian. So now if we want to run Debian in our environment, and they did Alma Linux 3 months ago, but now they have an update of Alma Linux 10. So Werewolf is run by CIQ, the same guys that do Rocky Linux, but they also there's nothing there that says that they can't support these other things. I mean, it's an open source community, right? So they do support Alma Linux 8, 9, and 10. So if we wanted to run Alma Linux in our environment and compare them, we could, right? If somebody gave me a use case and said, hey, Scott, I need, if somebody asked me in Discord, like, hey, Scott, could you stand up a couple of Alma Linux boxes? It wouldn't be hard to do, right? It would just be some Werewolf commands, pull them down. I got plenty of storage I can add. But we got... we carved this. So we carved this up because we wanted this to be STIG compliant. Normally I don't do stuff like this. Well, I do professionally, but not in my home lab. You guys see my home lab, I just do dumb stuff all the time. But we got plenty of extra space if we need to add to any of these. Like, we got 50 gigs free. I also have plenty of extra space that we could add. So again, if somebody needed that stuff, you just let me know. Yeah, Double Nickel, you just do DNF install SL and it'll install it for you. So it's an SL. Oh, if you don't find it, you got to do epel-release first. So actually we should be able to... Hold on. That's an interesting question. So DNF, search all for SL real quick, right? And let's just look for Steam. I have to go manually look for it. Because it's finding everything. Just search for SL. And I wonder if I can anchor that to the front. I don't know if this will work, but we'll try it. I'm not sure if it'll... Yeah, it's probably not gonna look like that. Yeah. Let me see. Let's look for... Let's do it this way. It should tell me what repo it came from. Package vendor, bug summary. I don't see it. Here's the RPM. So we could... Yeah, I don't know how I got on here. I at least know it's there. I thought it was in... I'm trying to think where to find... I guess we could do... Well, let's do it like this. It's going to be a hassle, but... There it is. It's here. And it's the URL matched it, so it's sl-.x8664. Let's look for that. It's interesting that it doesn't find it. That's fine. I just was hoping that it would tell us the... Didn't look like we got that info anyways. Which of the repos it's coming from. Yeah, but maybe I need to... we can always disable repos, and then we would find it that way if we needed to. Like, we could disable the different repos until we get down to just the one that we need. Thought I heard the wife yell for me. Are you home, wifey? Oh, the wifey's home. Guys, I gotta go. I appreciate everybody coming by. Let's go raid somebody over on Twitch. On YouTube, I appreciate you guys coming. I will see you all later.